Chapter 1740. Seeing everyone stunned, Yi Xian burst out laughing. I was just kidding. Hearing this, Lin Xiao and the others heaved a sigh of relief. As for Yi Xian's heart, it was bleeding. Fuck. This was too much. The treasures and wealth of the ancient Heaven clan weren't ordinary. After all, it was a superpower that had lived for hundreds of thousands of years. How could their wealth be ordinary? Of course, he wouldn't be jealous or go back on his word. These people had risked their lives for him, Yi Xian. Not to mention this bit of wealth, even if it was 10 times more, he would still be willing. After a while, Yi Xian looked around, then looked at Yi He. Miss Yi He, I need 3 days, is that okay? Yi He hesitated, then said, okay. It's just that, young Master Yi, our troubles might. Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. Didn't Dad say it was just a small trouble? Yi He, within the prison pagoda, Xiao Ta sneered inwardly, young Master, this fool, does he think the small trouble in Master's eyes is the same? Moreover, even Master thinks it's a small trouble. Wait for death. Wait for death. I'll bury him. Yi He was speechless. This father and son pair didn't seem very reliable. Could this fellow really solve the problem if he went back with him? Yi Xian didn't ask. He was already at Heaven Ascension realm, who was he afraid of? Invincible in the same realm. Instant kill with 1 sword. If 1 sword wasn't enough, then 2. 2 at most. Thinking of this, Yi Xian couldn't help but laugh. He seemed to have gotten a little arrogant. After a while, everyone left. At this moment, Mo Qingran and Tai Yu appeared. Looking at the ancient Heaven clan, their eyes flashed with a trace of complexity. A superpower that had lived for hundreds of thousands of years was gone just like that. Because of a retarded family head. Tai Yu said softly, Tian Yi. Saying this, he shook his head and sighed. Mo Qingran smiled, actually, it's not all his fault. Tai Yu looked at Mo Qingran, the latter said, his sister is much more outstanding than him. But she can't become family head? Why? Because it was not in line with the interests of those elders. In times of peace, a good-for-nothing patriarch was in line with everyone's interests. Actually, this is normal. For so many years, apart from the 3 of us, almost no one has dared to provoke the ancient divine clan, including the All-Heaven City and the Sword Alliance. In a one-on-one fight, he wouldn't be a match for the ancient heavenly race. It's just that I didn't expect that Yi Xian. As he spoke, he shook his head and smiled. Not to mention him, even we didn't expect Yi Xian to be able to unite the forces of the entire All-Heaven City. Not only that, but his backing is also so powerful that the number of people he has increased. Tai Yu nodded, this Yi Xian has indeed exceeded all of our expectations. Mo Qingran said softly, I have to reconsider my successor. Great Nether looked at Mo Qingran, selection? Mo Qingran nodded, this time, the ancient Heaven race has given us a wake-up call. If a good-for-nothing becomes the person in charge, it will really bring about the danger of extermination to the sect. Great Nether nodded, indeed. Mo Qingran looked around and sighed again, hundreds of thousands of years of inheritance, scattered in one day. Great Nether smiled. Tell me about that green-robed man. Hearing this, Mo Qingran's expression became solemn. Great Nether smiled, we are still very weak. Mo Qingran smiled bitterly, indeed. Yi Xian returned to the Sword Alliance. In a courtyard, Yi Xian looked at Zhang Wenxiu and Enlanxiu, how about you stay in the Sword Alliance and cultivate? Zhang Wenxiu curled his lips, do you think we will be a burden? Yi Xian smiled. If you want to go together, that's fine too. Zhang Wenxiu shook his head, we can't help if we follow them now. Let's go. Yi Xian nodded, all right. Enlanxiu suddenly said softly, too fast. Too fast. Actually, she was already working very hard. But no matter how hard she worked, it was difficult to catch up to Yi Xian's footsteps. She had already surpassed Yi Xian earlier, but Yi Xian suddenly ascended to the heavens. This was too absurd. Yi Xian looked at Enlancio and smiled. Spar? Seal Division Cultivation. Enlancio looked at Yi Xian. Are you sure? Yi Xian nodded. I'm sure. Enlancio nodded. All right. The two of them arrived at a martial arena. The arena was very large, hundreds of meters in length and width, and the space around it was reinforced. Yi Xian looked at Enlancio and smiled. Come. Enlancio suddenly vanished on the spot, and at the instant she vanished, Yi Xian suddenly stabbed out with his sword. Bang! As soon as the sword and spear collided, the arena beneath their feet instantly trembled. At this moment, Enlancio suddenly raised her gun and stabbed forward. Although her cultivation was sealed, Enlancio's spear was still swift like lightning. Yi Xian didn't choose to clash head-on this time. Instead, he lightly tapped the tip of his feet, and his entire body floated backwards. Chi! Enlancio's spear pierced the air, and a sharp sound of air being torn apart suddenly sounded out. But right at this moment, Enlancio's left foot took a large stride forward, and the spear in her hand was pulled back. Her body spun on the spot, and the spear left her hand. Chi! The sound of air exploding resounded. In the distance, Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. This time, he didn't choose to dodge, but leaped up and fiercely slashed out with his sword in both hands. Bang! Enlancio's spear was forcefully stopped. But at this moment, Enlancio suddenly flashed, and she directly kicked the spear's handle. Bang! The sword in Yi Xian's hand trembled violently, and his entire body retreated several tens of meters away along with his sword. Yi Xian had just stopped when Enlancio suddenly vanished on the spot. Swift like the wind. A spear tore through the sky and pierced straight towards the center of Yi Xian's brows. Yi Xian raised his sword horizontally to block it. Bang! Yi Xian retreated another few meters. He hadn't even stopped when Enlancio suddenly tossed her spear forward. Another spear arrived. Yi Xian didn't retreat, and he still chose to go head-on against her. He held his sword with both hands as he slashed forward. If he took a step back when facing Enlancio, then he would be constantly retreating. Enlancio wouldn't give him the slightest chance to catch his breath. He could only go head-on against her. Along with this slash of Yi Xian's sword, an explosion suddenly resounded, and Enlancio's spear was directly blasted flying. Meanwhile, Enlancio suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian, and she directly smashed her fist towards Yi Xian's chest. Yi Xian abandoned his sword and smashed his fist forward. He had no choice but to abandon his sword because the distance between them was too close, and it was too late to withdraw his sword and stab again or defend. Bang! A sharp explosion suddenly resounded, and then both of them retreated explosively repeatedly. Both of them stopped after retreating over 30 m, and both of them didn't attack again. Enlancio gazed at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Yi Xian said with a smile, "Let's consider it a draw." If they wanted to determine the victor, then they really had to utilize killer moves. Moreover, both of them obviously wouldn't utilize killer moves. Enlancio nodded lightly. "Shall we go?" Yi Xian nodded. Both of them walked along the arena towards the distance. Enlancio's dress was white as snow, and it was spotless. Enlancio lightly combed her beautiful hair behind her ear and said in a light voice, "I want to return to Azure County." Yi Xian stopped moving, and then he turned around to look at Enlancio. "You're leaving?" Enlancio nodded lightly. "I'm unable to help much." Yi Xian gazed at Enlancio. "All along the way, too many people have left." "Are you leaving as well?" Enlancio didn't speak. Yi Xian said in a light voice, "Little one, you're the first girl I've met that moved my heart." Anlancio looked at Yi Xian and still didn't speak. Yi Xian said with a smile, "The first time I saw you in Qingcheng, I was moved. However, at that time, I only wanted to save my younger sister. Later on, I helped a lot." As he spoke, he shook his head and smiled. "Little one, it's a little pretentious to say anything else. I want to accompany me to the end of my journey. I promise that after everything is over, we'll return to Azure County. Can I?" Anlancio looked at Yi Xian. "You'll go back, right?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." Anlancio said in a light voice, "I'm a little tired from chasing." Yi Xian said with a smile, "Do you want to be stronger than me?" Anlancio shook her head. "I just want to help. However, my enemies are getting stronger and stronger. Many times, I'm just a burden." Yi Xian said with a smile, "Many times, I feel that I'm a burden." Anlancio said in a light voice, "It's a little better now." Yi Xian nodded. This period of time was better, but this was also because he had reached the heaven ascension boundary. Yi Xian said with a smile, "Continue walking with me. If there's no Ling and you on the road ahead, I'll be very lonely. With you here, my life has meaning." Anlancio looked at Yi Xian for a moment and nodded. "Okay." Yi Xian said with a smile, "Will you accompany me this time?" Anlancio shook her head. "I'm going into seclusion." Yi Xian was stunned. "Breaking through?" Anlancio opened her palm. In her hand, there was an ancient book. Yi Xian was somewhat curious. "This is?" Anlancio said, "This was left to me by my father." "Father?" Yi Xian blinked. "When did he leave it to you?" Anlancio said, "When we left." Yi Xian was somewhat speechless. He actually didn't know. Anlancio looked at Yi Xian. "When we return, I'll give you a surprise." Yi Xian was somewhat curious. "What surprise?" Anlancio said, "You'll know when we return." Yi Xian, after the two chatted for a while, Anlancio continued to cultivate, while Yi Xian returned to the Undying Emperor clan. Inside the hall, Dongli Yasuo looked at Yi Xian with a complex look in her eyes. "This growth speed." Yi Xian smiled. Then, he took out a storage ring and placed it in front of Dongli Yasuo. Dongli Yasuo glanced at the storage ring. In the next moment, she stood up, her eyes filled with disbelief. "This," Yi Xian said with a smile, "Saint rank spring of eternal life. It's even better than the one in the eternal world. From now on, our Undying Emperor clan has our own spring of eternal life." Dongli Yasuo looked at Yi Xian. "Our Undying Emperor clan?" Yi Xian said with a smile, "I, Yi Xian, will be a member of the Undying Emperor clan for all eternity." One should never forget one's roots. He would never forget how the Undying Emperor clan had treated him, Yi Xian. As he said, he, Yi Xian, would be a member of the Undying Emperor clan for all eternity. Dongli Yasuo smiled. At this moment, her heart was very warm. Compared to Yi Xian's words, the spring of eternal life in front of her didn't seem so important anymore. She had gambled correctly. She had not misjudged him. After chatting with Dongli Yasuo for a while, Yi Xian left. Somewhere in the starry sky, Yi Xian was flying on his sword. Beside him was Yi He. Yi He's eyes were filled with faint worry. Her grandfather had asked her to call for reinforcements, but she found that this father and son pair were each more unreliable than the other, especially this Yi Xian. Did he know what he was facing? Why was he so confident? Where did his confidence come from? Or could it be that this guy was a super expert who had surpassed the mortal realm? Was he just pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger? P.S. I forgot to ask for votes yesterday. A huge loss. At least a few thousand. Chapter 1741. In the starry sky, Yi Xian was riding his sword, his eyes slightly closed. He was looking at the two sword imprints left behind by his elder brother and father. However, the two sword imprints were sealed. He couldn't open them at all. Yi Xian was somewhat helpless. It seemed that he could only open them when he reached the mortal severing realm. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at Yi He. "Miss Yi He, do you know my father?" Yi He shook her head. "My grandfather knows him." Yi Xian nodded slightly. "What happened to your family?" She said, "It's our realm." As she spoke, she glanced at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, what realm are you in now?" Yi Xian smiled. "Ascend to the heavens." Ascend to the heavens. Yi He hesitated, and then said, "True realm?" Yi Xian blinked. "This. What do you mean by asking this?" He said, "I'm just asking. There's no other meaning." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Miss Yi He, is the trouble you've encountered very big?" Yi He nodded. "For us, it's quite big, but for young Master Yi, it should be a small trouble." Hearing this, Yi Xian's heart immediately relaxed. "That's good." Yi He glanced at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, you can actually reach the Heaven Ascension realm at this age, really monstrous. May I ask, how did you do it?" In fact, she was really curious. Because even if Yi Xian advanced a level every year since he was born, it was impossible to reach the Heaven Ascension realm at this age. Especially some realms could not be fast. And Yi Xian reached the Heaven Ascension realm at such a young age. Even in their place, it was very, very rare. No, it was basically none. Yi Xian laughed. "Miss Yi He, is it rare to see such a young Heaven Ascension realm in your place?" Yi He nodded. "Almost none." "So, seeing young Master Yi reach the Heaven Ascension realm at such a young age, I'm a little curious." Yi Xian smiled and said, "This." Yi He looked at Yi Xian. "Is it inconvenient for you to say it?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "Miss Yi He, have you ever seen a true peerless genius? It's the kind that no matter what kind of martial technique or mental cultivation method it is, you can learn it with just a glance, and no matter what bottleneck it is, you can break through it with just a night's sleep." Yi He blinked. "I've never seen this before." Yi Xian pointed at himself and said seriously, "Miss Yi He has seen it now." Yi He was stunned. Within the prison pagoda, Xiaofan shook his head. "So a person can be shameless to such an extent?" Yi He looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, is what you said true?" Yi Xian said seriously, "Of course. I never lie." Xiaofan. Yi He hesitated for a moment, then said, "There's actually such a genius in this world. I've learned something." Saying that, she looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, can you do me a favor?" Yi Xian was curious. "What favor?" Yi He took out an ancient book and handed it to Yi Xian. "This is my Yi clan's supreme mental cultivation method, but there are some parts one don't understand. Young Master Yi, please take a look and teach me." Yi Xian. Xiaofan suddenly laughed. "Let's see how you act." Yi He looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, can I?" Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then said, "Miss Yi He, this is your Yi clan's supreme mental cultivation method, do you really want to show it to an outsider like me?" Yi He smiled slightly. "This mental cultivation method may be precious to others, but to young Master Yi, it's not worth mentioning." Yi Xian smiled and said, "If that's the case, then I'll take a look." Saying that, he picked up the ancient book and started reading. Yi He just looked at Yi Xian. She naturally wouldn't believe Yi Xian so easily. How could there be such a genius in this world? At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly returned the ancient book to Yi He. "I've finished reading." Yi He was stunned. "Finished reading?" Yi Xian nodded. "I've finished reading." Yi He glanced at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, please advise me." Yi Xian smiled and said, then I'll be frank. Saying that, he pointed at the ancient book. Miss Yi He, your Yi clan's mental cultivation method, I don't think you need to cultivate it. Yi He looked at Yi Xian, what do you mean? Yi Xian smiled and said, it means it's very trashy. Yi He was speechless. Yi Xian sized up Yi He, Miss Yi He, may I ask, you're currently in the Void Realm, but how many years have you cultivated? Yi He said, nearly 400 years, 400 years. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched, my god, I really couldn't tell. This girl is actually over 400 years old. Of course, in front of a cultivator, age is actually meaningless. Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and said seriously, Miss Yi He, the upper limit of your Yi clan's mental cultivation method is too low, to the extent that you only reached the Void Realm after cultivating for an entire 400 years. Yi He looked at Yi Xian, the upper limit is low? Yi Xian nodded, yes. Miss Yi He, under normal circumstances, if you cultivated my Yang clan's mental cultivation method, then you should have attained the Heaven Ascension realm by now. Yi He glanced at the mental cultivation technique in her hand and said, Young Master Yi, can you tell me why this mental cultivation technique's upper limit is low? Yi Xian smiled, Miss Yi He, I think it's meaningless for us to discuss this. I'll show you a sword technique I created, and you'll understand. As he spoke, he drew his sword and swung it forward. Hiss! A ray of light suddenly tore through the air, and then a deathly silent region in the distance was instantly obliterated inch by inch. Life and death were decided by drawing the sword. Everything was obliterated by this attack. The deathly silent region was obliterated once more, and then it returned to nothingness. Yi He's face instantly became solemn when she saw this attack, this. Yi Xian gazed at Yi He and smiled, Miss Yi He, what do you think? Yi He spoke solemnly, Young Master Yi, did you really create this sword technique? Yi Xian nodded, of course. In this world, besides me, who else can create such an awesome sword technique? Yi He. Within the prison pagoda, Xiaofan shook her head, shame. Shame. Truly shameless. I, Xiaofan, have never seen such a shameless person. In front of Yi Xian, Yi He took a deep look at Yi Xian, I've underestimated young Master Yi. Needless to say, she was extremely shocked at this moment. In the beginning, she'd thought that even though Yi Xian was at the Heaven Ascension realm, he'd probably used some secret technique to advance. It was fake. That was what she'd thought at the beginning. But when she saw Yi Xian's attack just now, she was truly shocked. The young man in front of her was actually able to create such a shocking sword technique. His talent was so terrifying that it was unprecedented. Yi Xian suddenly smiled, Miss Yi He, what do you think of my sword technique? Yi He said in a low voice, powerful. Yi Xian laughed, actually, it's just average. I have an even more powerful sword technique. Yi He looked at Yi Xian, there's an even more powerful one? Yi Xian nodded, that's right. It's extremely powerful, and can only be used when there's no other choice, because once it's used, the galaxy will vanish into nothingness, and the universe will collapse. Yi He blinked, it's that exaggerated? Yi Xian waved the sword in his hand, just now, I only used 30% of my strength, if I used my full strength, Yi He fell silent. 30% strength. If this guy in front of her wasn't lying, then this sword technique was just too terrifying. This sword technique could most likely instantly kill a Paragon Realm expert. Thinking of this, she looked at Yi Xian, young Master Yi, if you used your full strength in that sword technique just now, could you instantly kill a Paragon Realm expert? Yi Xian laughed, Paragon Realm? They're just ants. Yi He, in the prison pagoda, Xiaofan shook his head again, this young master is so arrogant that he almost can't recognize himself. I feel like something big is about to happen. The two continued forward. Along the way, Yi's expression was extremely serious. She was a little shocked. Comparing oneself to others was really infuriating. She had cultivated for hundreds of years to reach the nothingness realm, but he had only used 20 years to reach it. Moreover, he was able to create such a shocking sword skill. What a monster! He was truly a monster. Yi sighed in her heart. In the past, she was considered a monster in her place, but now, she suddenly realized that compared to this young Master Yi, she was just trash. Yi Xian suddenly laughed. Miss Yi, do you have many Paragon Realm elites on your side? She said, not especially many, but not a few either. Not a few. Yi Xian caught the main point, and looked at Yi. Miss Yi, how many do you mean by not a few? Yi smiled and said, that means that each faction has about one transcending mundane realm elite. Of course, this is nothing to young Master Yi. Yi Xian hesitated, and then said, as long as it's not too many. Actually, he quite wanted to fight against Paragon Realm elites. In this period of time, he had improved quite a lot, and Heaven Ascension Realm elites could no longer satisfy him. After all, he could now easily kill Heaven Ascension Realm elites. Only a fight between Paragon Realm elites would be a little interesting. At this time, Yi suddenly asked, young Master Yi, even elites above Paragon Realm shouldn't be much of a threat to you, right? Yi Xian hesitated, and then said, not much of a threat. Miss Yi, why do you suddenly ask this question? Yi smiled slightly, I'm just a little curious, no other meaning. Hearing this, Yi Xian immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Yi suddenly pointed to a black whirlpool in the distance. Young Master Yi, this is a time transfer array, after passing through this array, we will arrive. Yi Xian couldn't help but ask, Miss Yi, is your trouble really that big? Yi smiled, for us, it's a little big, but for young Master Yi, it shouldn't be big. Let's go. As she spoke, she directly turned into a stream of light and submerged into the time transfer array. Yi Xian was a little hesitant. Intuition told him that things didn't seem to be that simple. After a moment, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled, didn't father already say? Just a little trouble. Little trouble. Yi Xian laughed, and directly turned into a sword light and submerged into the time transfer array. Chapter 1742. After entering the time transmission array, Yi Xian was rather shocked. Time transmission array. This was his first time seeing it. The time dimension previously was somewhat illusory and very difficult to materialize. But the transmission array here not only materialized it, but could also transform it and make use of it. Not simple. Because he was already at the Heaven Ascension realm now and even cultivated out a time dimension. But even he himself found it hard to transform this time dimension. He had thought of condensing this time dimension into a sword, but it was a little difficult. However, he felt that it should be possible. At this time, Yi suddenly said, young Master Yi, we're almost there. Yi Xian looked into the distance. He was rather curious, Miss Yi, what's that place of yours called? Yi said, Primordial Realm. Primordial Realm. Yi Xian's brows furrowed slightly. He had never heard of it before. Yi said with a smile, our place is very far from the All-Heavens City. If there's no time dimension transmission array, even severing realm powerhouses will find it hard to reach our place too. Yi Xian said in a low voice, the universe is really infinitely big. Yi nodded. The boundless universe is boundless and boundless. Nobody knows the end either. Yi Xian nodded. Actually, the universe was so big, he wanted to go and take a look too. He already thought it through. After the matters of the primordial realm were settled, he would bring in Lanxiu and Zhang Wenxiu, as well as Ling Er to go and see everywhere. Fighting every day and whatnot, he was already sick of it. Strolling around everywhere, posturing, flirting with girls, this kind of life was pretty good. Right at this time, a streak of white light appeared in the spatial transmission channel in the distance. Yi he said, "We're here." Finished talking, she and Yi Xian already passed through the white light and appeared in a stretch of sky. And the moment Yi Xian came out, he was immediately stupefied. In front of them stood thousands of people. Among them, the lowest was Endless Realm, and there were actually close to 100 Heaven Ascension realms. Not only that, there were more than 30 Severing Realm powerhouses too. Yi Xian was somewhat dumbfounded. So many Heaven Ascension realms and Severing realms? And at this moment, everyone present was looking at Yi Xian, their eyes full of doubt. Yi he suddenly walked in front of an old man. "Grandpa, I've brought her back." The old man glanced at Yi Xian. "Did you bring the wrong person?" Yi he shook his head. "That green-robed Swordmaster said he was busy, so he sent his son here." "Son?" The old man looked at Yi Xian. "Little friend, you're the son of the green-robed Swordmaster?" Yi Xian nodded. The old man said with a trembling voice, "That's the young master." "Greetings, young master." As he spoke, he bowed slightly. Seeing the old man salute, the rest of the people were stunned for a moment before they followed suit. However, their eyes were filled with doubt and confusion. This was because they did not know the azure-robed Swordmaster. Yi Xian hurriedly said, "Everyone, there's no need to be so courteous." The old man glanced at Yi Xian, a hint of surprise flashing across his eyes. "Young lord has reached the Heaven Ascension boundary." As he spoke, he stroked his beard and smiled. As expected of the Swordmaster's son. He's extraordinarily outstanding. Heaven Ascension boundary. Hearing the old man's words, everyone's eyes flashed a trace of shock. To reach the Heaven Ascension boundary at such a young age, this was not simple. Yi Xian looked at the old man in front of him and said with a smile, "Senior knows my father?" The old man nodded. "I met the Swordmaster by chance." As he spoke, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. "If it wasn't for the fact that there was no other way, I wouldn't have bothered the Swordmaster." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "What trouble?" He suddenly felt that something was wrong. The old man said in a low voice, "Young lord, follow me." Under the lead of the old man, the group walked into the distance. On the way, Yi Xian learned that the old man's name was Yi Yuan, the patriarch of the Yi clan. And the Yi clan was the second greatest force in the Yuan realm. In the Yuan realm, there were 3 great forces. Among them were the Yi clan, the Shao clan, and the Yuan clan. And here, there were 12 spirit-level spring of eternal life, which was why there were so many Yuan-level experts. But this also brought disaster to the Yuan realm. 12 spirit-level spring of eternal life, this was too tempting. Yi Yuan brought Yi Xian to the Yi clan's main hall. Yi Yuan said in a low voice, "The Beast Demon clan has been blocked outside the Great Wall of Heaven Mountain by our joint forces. But the situation is not good, because we are relying on a powerful formation to block them outside. If the formation is broken, our chances of winning will be very small." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "The Beast Demon clan?" Yi Yuan hurriedly explained, "It was originally the Beast Demon clan and the Beast Demon clan, and both are extremely powerful. But before this, these 2 clans were like fire and water, hostile to each other, so our Yuan realm was peaceful. And not long ago, one person unified the Beast Demon clan and the Beast Demon clan. Unified the Beast Demon clan and the Beast Demon clan." Yi Xian asked, "Who?" Yi Yuan shook his head. "I don't know. We only know that the Beast Demon clan and the Demon clan have been unified and merged into the Beast Demon clan. And after they merged, they directly launched an invasion on our Yuan realm." Yi Xian was silent. Damn. This doesn't seem like a small problem. Coming alone, it seems like it was a little rash. Yi Yuan smiled, but now that the young master is here, we don't have to worry at all. Yi Xian, Yi Yuan looked at Yi Xian. Young master has a trump card, right? Yi Xian blinked. What trump card? Yi Yuan's expression froze. Young master, you really came alone? Of course, I don't mean to look down on young master, but the beast demon clan is really powerful. In the same level, human experts are no match for them. If young master is alone. Yi Xian was speechless. Damn. Didn't Dad say it was just a small problem? What kind of father would trick his son like this? He was trying to kill him. And now, he was a little annoyed. Leave? If he were to leave now, it would be too humiliating for him. If he didn't leave, he felt that he would be killed. Yi Yuan looked at Yi Xian, and said cautiously, young master? Yi Xian collected his thoughts, looked at Yi Yuan, and smiled, don't I still have you guys? Yi Yuan hesitated, wanting to speak but hesitating. Yi Xian smiled, Senior, you won't put all your hopes on others, right? Yi Yuan smiled bitterly, of course not, it's just that young master, if you are alone, it may be a little dangerous. Yi Xian hurriedly said, then I'll go back. Hearing this, Yi Yuan was stunned. Everyone present was also stunned. This young master seemed to want to escape. At this moment, Yi He suddenly said, Grandfather, you don't know, young master is a rare super genius that appears once in a million years. Although he is only at the Heaven Ascension realm, he can kill absolute mortal realm experts like killing dogs. Even experts above absolute mortal realm in front of him, are just ants. Yi Xian's expression froze, he looked at Yi He, his face full of shock. Have I ever boasted about myself like that? Have I? Have I ever said such a thing? He can't remember. Hearing Yi He's words, Yi Yuan looked at Yi Xian. Young master, can you really kill someone in the end of the mundane realm so easily? Yi He also looked at Yi Xian. There was even a hint of admiration in her eyes. Yi Xian hesitated, then said, my father told me that I have to be low-key. Hearing this, Yi He immediately smiled, then you can. As expected of the Swordmaster's son, haha. Yi Xian was a little confused. How did this old man understand what I said? Did I say I can? At this moment, a black-robed old man suddenly appeared in the hall. The black-robed old man bowed slightly to Yi Yuan, and was about to speak, but Yi He suddenly said, Greetings young master. In the future, my Yi clan will follow young master's lead. Hearing Yi Yuan's words, the Yi clan experts present were somewhat shocked. Follow young master's lead. Some of the elders wanted to say something, but they were stopped by Yi Yuan. Their clansmen hadn't seen the green-clothed Swordmaster, so they didn't know how terrifying he was, but he knew. That was a godlike man. The son of such a terrifying man was definitely not an ordinary person. The black-robed old man bowed slightly to Yi Xian, Greetings young master. Yi Xian was speechless. The black-robed old man spoke in a low voice, Patriarch, young master, the beast race has just launched a new round of attacks, and we've suffered slightly heavy losses. 6 Heaven Ascension Realm experts have died, and over 30 Void Realm experts have died. Yi Yuan spoke in a low voice, what about the other side? The black-robed old man hesitated for a moment, and then he said, not a single Heaven Ascension Realm expert has died, and only 2 Void Realm experts have died. The faces of everyone here sank when they heard this. Yi Xian's expression was slightly unsightly as well. Isn't the difference in combat strength between the two sides too huge? 6 Heaven Ascension Realm experts have died, but not a single enemy has died. What the hell is this? He's trying to slip away again. At this moment, Yi Yuan looked at Yi Xian, young master, what do you think? Everyone in the hall looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment, and then he said, the entire Yuan realm has joined forces? Yi Yuan nodded, yes. Yi Xian asked again, "Are we united?" Yi Yuan said, "Of course we are united. If we still harbor ulterior motives at this time, then we can only wait for death." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "But the gap in combat strength is still huge, right?" Yi Yuan said in a low voice, "The difference between the top experts is not great, and we even have more, but the difference in battle strength is a little big, because the physical bodies of those demonic beasts are very strong. A Heaven Ascension realm demonic beast can basically fight against 2 human Heaven Ascension experts." Yi Xian asked again, "The experts below are the same?" Yi Yuan nodded. The gap in combat strength was too huge. Yi Xian fell silent. It was not easy to deal with. He should have brought the Sword Alliance. The Sword Alliance's combat strength should be able to fight against these demon beasts. However, he did not want to drag the Sword Alliance down with him. After all, this matter did not have much to do with the Sword Alliance. As for him, he definitely would not leave. Since his father had asked him to come here to help, it was certainly not that simple. Because if it was an ordinary friendship, his father would definitely not let him come. And if he left, he would not only lose his face, but also his father's. At this time, the black-robed old man said in a low voice, "The Beast Demon clan has launched an attack again." Yi Yuan looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian got up, "Then let's go. Let's go see." Everyone got up. At this time, Yi walked over to Yi Xian's side. She gently pulled Yi Xian's sleeve, and then whispered, "Will you kill the Beast Demon clan in a second?" Yi Xian. P.S. The weather suddenly turned cold. It's too cold. Everyone keep warm. I really don't want to get up in the morning. Chapter 1743. Yi Xian was speechless. This girl believed what he had said before without a doubt. She wasn't mocking him, she really thought he had the ability to destroy the beast men. Destroy the beast men with one sword? This woman's way of thinking was dangerous. Damn it. Next time, he had to know when to stop. Or else, it would be awkward. He was a little awkward now. Soon, the group left the Yi clan and headed for the Great Wall of Heaven Mountain. The Great Wall of Heaven Mountain was the last barrier against the beast men. Once it was destroyed, the beast men would invade the entire Yuan realm. That would be a disaster for the Yuan realm. Yi Xian realized that the Yuan realm didn't only have the 3 major powers, there were also many smaller powers. There were at least 100 million living beings in the Yuan realm. If the Great Wall of Heaven Mountain was destroyed, the fate of these living beings could be imagined. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Senior Yi Yuan, how did you meet my father?" He was curious. He realized that his father had a wide circle of friends, completely different from Qing and his big brother. Yi Yuan smiled, "We met in Sky Sin City. At that time, one of his little white fellows took a fancy to one of my items and wanted to trade a stick of Tonghulu with me." Yi Xian laughed. Needless to say, it had to be Little White. Only Little White could do such a thing. Yi Yuan said, "I saw that she was cute, so I gave it to her." Hearing this, Yi Xian was surprised. "The item she took a fancy to is not an ordinary item, yet you gave it to her just like that?" Yi Yuan smiled, "Actually, I had a selfish motive. Because she is the spirit ancestor, I wanted to form a good relationship with her." Yi Xian smiled, "Senior, you didn't think of taking her away?" Yi Yuan shook his head, "How could I have such thoughts?" The spirit ancestor had already recognized someone else as his master. How could someone who could be recognized by the spirit ancestor be an ordinary person? Especially since the other party dared to let the spirit ancestor wander around alone. Saying this, he shook his head and smiled, "I don't need to think to know that the other party is not an ordinary person." Yi Xian sighed in his heart. This was the patriarch of a large clan. Who the hell was that Tianyi? Yi Yuan continued, however, she still didn't take my things for free. She still gave me a stick of tanhulu. As he spoke, he smiled bitterly. Yi Xian also laughed. In Little White's heart, tanhulu was really very precious. Actually, this was all the man in green's fault. This was because the green-robed man had told Little White that they could not casually take other people's things unless they used something precious to exchange for it. But he simply could not imagine that in Little White's heart, the most precious thing was the tanhulu. Therefore, in her world, she felt that giving him candied fruits was already very, very sincere. Meanwhile, Yi Yuan continued, not long after she ran away, your father brought her here. She insisted on returning it to me, but I didn't accept it at that time. I just told her that I gave it to her. Take it as a good deed. Your father also agreed. Yi Xian understood. It turned out that Yi Yuan and his father had met because of Little White. However, he had to admit that Yi Yuan was really bold. Because anything that Little White took a fancy to was definitely not ordinary, and he actually gave it away. Yi Yuan continued, young master, how are the Swordmaster and the others? Yi Xian smiled, they are very good. My father is very free. In fact, he was quite curious about where his father and big brother were going. Both of their strengths were very terrifying. If they were to work together, they would definitely cause big trouble. He wanted to go with them, but unfortunately, his father did not bring him along. Sometimes, he even wondered if he was really his biological son. Yi Yuan glanced at Yi Xian and smiled, young master, we're here. Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and looked into the distance. Not far away, he could vaguely see a huge city wall in the clouds. The Great Wall of Heavenly Mountain. Yi Yuan said softly, outside the Great Wall of Heavenly Mountain is the Beastmen clan. Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, an explosion suddenly came from the distant sky. Boom! In an instant, the mountains shook and the earth trembled. Yi Xian frowned slightly, this is? Yi Yuan said in a low voice, Beastmen. Yi Xian blinked, so fierce? Yi Yuan nodded, those ascending heaven realm beastmen are even stronger. Beast demons of the mortal realm. As he said this, his expression became more and more serious. Not only Yi Yuan, but the expressions of the other Yi clan experts also turned solemn. Some of them had fought with the mortal realm beastmen of the Beast Demon clan and were very clear about the terror of the mortal realm beastmen of the Beast Demon clan. It was actually very difficult for beastmen to cultivate to the mortal realm because they could only rely on cultivating their physical bodies to break through to the mortal realm. But it was also because of this that once they reached the mortal realm, they would be very terrifying. It could be said that even two human mortal realm beastmen would find it difficult to stop a beast demon mortal realm beastmen. At this moment, an old man suddenly appeared in front of everyone. On the left side of the old man's chest, there was a small Yuan character carved. Obviously, this was from the Yuan clan. The old man looked at Yi Yuan who was in the lead, where are your reinforcements? Yi Yuan turned to look at Yi Xian, and the old man also looked at Yi Xian. When he saw Yi Xian, he frowned slightly, it's him? Yi Yuan nodded. The old man looked coldly at Yi Xian, Yi Yuan, are you joking? Yi Yuan was a little displeased, Yuan Qi, what do you mean? Yuan Qi said coldly, this is the reinforcements you brought the entire clan to welcome? Are you trying to kill me? Yi Yuan's expression instantly darkened, Yuan Qi, why don't we spar first? Yuan Qi said calmly, Yi Yuan clan leader, how would I dare to spar with you? As he said this, he looked at Yi Xian and laughed coldly, bringing the entire clan to welcome a little kid, there's really something about your Yi clan. Yi Yuan clan leader, the person you called over is a joke. As he said this, he turned and disappeared at the end of the horizon. Yi Yuan turned to look at Yi Xian, a trace of apology flashed in his eyes, young master, I'm sorry. Yi Xian smiled, it's all right. Yi Yuan said solemnly, young master, I've thought about it, you should go back. Yi Xian looked at Yi Yuan, and Yi Yuan hurriedly said, I don't mean anything else, the main thing is, young master, you came to help this time, but our people treated you like this, I really feel bad, because you have no obligation to help us. But you still came. But you received this kind of treatment. As he said this, he sighed softly. Hearing this, Yi Xian had a good impression of Yi Yuan. No wonder this old man could form a good relationship with his old man. This kind of person, there was really nothing to say. At this moment, he thought of Tian Yi. What is this thing? Tian Yi, Yi Yuan was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly smiled, Senior Yi Yuan, I came this time because of you, not because of them, so just ignore them. Yi Yuan hesitated for a moment, and then he said, young master, my Yi clan and the Yuan clan have never been enemies, I'm afraid they will continue to target you later. Yi Xian smiled, then can I kill them? Yi Yuan was stunned. Yi He suddenly said, of course you can. Yi Xian looked at Yi He and smiled, why? Yi He said, there's no why. They target you for no reason, so of course you can kill them, is there a problem? Yi Xian laughed, no problem. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Yuan, Senior, let's go. I want to experience the beastmen as well. Yi Yuan thought for a moment, and then he nodded, all right. No matter what, my Yi clan will stand behind young master. As he spoke, the group walked towards the Great Wall of Heavenly Mountain. In a short while, they arrived at the Great Wall of Heavenly Mountain. It had to be said that the Great Wall of Heavenly Mountain was really imposing. The city walls were built according to the mountains, and they were all made of some special materials that were even sturdier than the hardest dark steel. Of course, this was completely insufficient. Yi Xian discovered that there were all sorts of runes all over the city walls. On top of the city walls, there was a formation every few zhang. And Yi Xian also discovered that there were many powerful auras hidden in the mountains behind the city walls. There were really many mortal severing realm experts. He had somewhat underestimated the experts of the Yuan realm forces. Yi Xian looked into the distance. Thousands of meters away from the city walls, there was an endless mountain range. Between the mountains, there were clouds and mist that couldn't be seen clearly. Yi Xian discovered that these clouds and mist weren't ordinary clouds and mist, because if they were ordinary clouds and mist, he would be able to see through them with his naked eye. However, these clouds and mist were like a barrier that forcefully blocked his vision. Yi Xian was just about to utilize his divine sense, but he quickly stopped himself. After all, they weren't ordinary demon beasts. If he utilized his divine sense right now, then they would definitely notice him. Yi Yuan suddenly said, young master, this is the area that our Yi clan guards. There are a total of 3 areas here. The Yuan clan is the strongest, so they're in charge of the most difficult area to guard, the main entrance. On the other hand, we and the Shao clan are in charge of the left and right. Yi Xian nodded slightly, and then he looked towards the distance again. However, he was unable to sense anything. Suddenly, a group of people walked over from the city walls. There were around 13 of them. The person in the lead was a man in white armor. He seemed to be around the age of 20, and he was very handsome. However, his gaze was extremely cold, and it made others feel as if they couldn't approach him. Yi Yuan spoke softly, it's the Yuan clan's Yuan Yan, the number 1 expert of the Yuan clan. Yi Xian gazed at Yuan Yan. Yuan Yan was at the void rank. As for the 12 people behind Yuan Yan, all of them were at the void rank as well. All of them were disciples of the Yuan clan and Shao clan. Yuan Yan's group walked over to Yi Yuan, and then they bowed slightly to him, Patriarch Yi. Yi Yuan nodded slightly, are we going to patrol? Yuan Yan nodded, are the members of the Yi clan ready? Yi Yuan gazed at Yi He. Yi He nodded, and then she and some other members of the younger generation of the Yi clan stepped forward. Meanwhile, Yi He seemed to have thought of something, and she gazed at Yi Xian. Shall we, FPZW? Chapter 1744. Yuan Yen and the others immediately gazed at Yi Xian when they saw Yi He extend an invitation to Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Sure." Seeing Yi Xian agree, Yi He immediately smiled. On the other hand, Yi Yuan seemed to want to say something, but he was slightly hesitant. Yuan Yen glanced over. "Let's go." After saying that, the group walked towards the distant city wall. Yi Xian and Black Leaf followed. Yi Xian, Yi He, and the other geniuses of the Yi clan were walking at the back of the group. Yi He pointed at Yuan Yen. "He's the most outstanding genius of the Yuan clan. I heard that he attained the peak of the void rank over 10 years ago, and there's even a rumor that he's already halfway into the Heaven Ascension realm." Yi Xian glanced at Yuan Yen. Yuan Yan's aura was thick, and he was a void rank expert. Just like a sword maniac. Although this person had not reached the Heaven Ascension realm, but he definitely had the strength to fight against a Heaven Ascension realm expert. Yi He then pointed at a black-robed man beside Yuan Yen. "This is Yuan Xiao, one of the geniuses of the Yuan family and one of the competitors for the crown prince. He's also a monster, but he's always been suppressed by Yuan Yen." Yi Xian looked at the man beside Yuan Xiao. The man looked thin and small, and his face was a little pale. He said, "Yuan Qing. He's also a super genius, but he's been frail and sickly since he was young. Even though the Yuan clan used countless heavenly treasures, it was useless." She paused for a moment and continued, "He's quite extraordinary because he's at the void rank as well. Moreover, it requires extremely great willpower to cultivate to the void rank with that sort of body." Yi Xian asked, "Is he also competing for the position of heir?" Yuan Qing shook his head. He had no desires, and if it wasn't for the invasion of the beast men, he wouldn't even appear in front of the world. He's a very low-key person. Low profile. Yi Xian glanced at Yuan Qing. At this moment, Yuan Qing suddenly turned his head to look at him. Yi Xian smiled as a form of greeting. Yuan Qing also smiled faintly. At the side, a man in a luxurious robe suddenly turned to look at Yi Xian. The man glanced at Yi Xian with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Then, he nodded slightly in greeting. Beside Yi Xian, Yi He said, "The person who greeted you just now is the most monstrous genius of the Shao clan's younger generation. His name is Shao Ju." Yi Xian looked at Yi He and smiled. "Yi clan is you, right?" Yi He nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian smiled and looked around. "What are we patrolling for?" Ji said, "There are frequent harassment and sneak attacks from the beasts. We are patrolling this area." As she spoke, she hesitated for a moment before she said, "Young Master Yi, don't attack rashly later." Yi Xian was puzzled. "Why?" Yi He said seriously, "Your sword is too powerful. I'm afraid you'll destroy our great wall of heavenly mountain." Yi Xian's expression froze. "It's over. Does this woman really think I can destroy a universe with a single strike of my sword? Damn it. I really can't brag like this next time." Right at this moment, Yuan Yen suddenly stopped. At practically the same time, Yi Xian frowned. Yi He turned around and glanced. "There's the aura of beasts." Yi Xian nodded. He just sensed an aura flash past the surroundings at an extremely swift speed. Yi He said in a low voice, "Be careful. There's a group of extremely mysterious assassins within the beasts. These beasts are extremely skilled in assassination techniques, and many of us die at their hands every time we battle them." Yi Xian smiled. "Looks like they've set their sights on us." Yi He nodded. She was about to speak when Yuan Yen suddenly vanished on the spot. Yi Xian immediately turned around. The space around 100 m away from the city had suddenly turned pitch black. In the next moment, a man walked out. It was Yuan Yen, and in his hand, he held a bloody demonic beast head. Yi Xian glanced at Yuan Yen. This person definitely had the strength to fight Heaven Ascension Realm. If he reached Heaven Ascension Realm, he would most likely be in existence that would be hard to find an opponent in the same realm. Beside him, Yuan Xiao smiled slightly. Big brother, you're very strong. Yuan Qing nodded slightly, not saying anything. Yuan Yen casually tossed the head aside and returned to the city wall. The group continued forward. However, Yi Xian turned around to take a look. He frowned. At this moment, Yi He asked, "What's wrong?" Yi Xian retracted his gaze and smiled, "Be careful." Yi He said in a low voice, "There's another beast demon?" Yi Xian nodded. Yi He looked at Yi Xian, "Do you know where the other party is?" Yi Xian shook his head, "The other party is very strange. I can't pinpoint his exact location, unless I use my sword." Yi He hurriedly shook her head, "No, no. You can't use your sword. The power of your sword is too great, it will damage this place." Yi Xian, Yi He was about to speak, but at this time, Yuan Yen stopped again. He turned his head and swept a glance, his brows slightly furrowed. Clearly, he felt it too. Yuan Yan's right foot tapped lightly, and his entire person vanished into thin air. Rumble. Outside the city wall, a space suddenly exploded. The next moment, a black figure retreated rapidly, but as he retreated, he disappeared. At this time, Yuan Yen also walked out of the shattered space. Yuan Yan's expression was calm, cowardly rat. Huh. At this time, the space in front of Yuan Yen suddenly trembled, and then a man appeared in front of Yuan Yen. The man had a human body, but his face was extremely ugly. A beast demon. The beast demon looked at Yuan Yen and laughed heartily. "You're the #1 genius of the Yuan realm, Yuan Yen?" Yuan Yan's face was expressionless. "What's with the nonsense? Come and fight." As his voice fell, he suddenly disappeared on the spot. In the distance, the beast demon suddenly punched out. Bang! At the instant his fist smashed forward, the space in an area of over 30 kilometers seemed like it had been struck by a sledgehammer, and it trembled violently. Rumble. A white light suddenly exploded in front of the beastman. Immediately after, the beastman retreated explosively. This retreat was more than 1,000 feet away. He had just stopped when Yuan Yen suddenly appeared above his head. After which, Yuan Yen suddenly stomped his foot down. Bang! When the foot landed, the space above the beastman's head collapsed, and the powerful force instantly blasted the beastman to the bottom of the city wall. Bang! A huge hole had suddenly appeared in front of the city wall, and the beast demon was nowhere to be seen. Yuan Yen took a glance at the hole, turned around, and left. Yi He spoke softly by Yi Xian's side. Yuan Yen seems to have grown stronger. Yi Xian didn't answer him. He just gazed towards the distance and saw a man walking over slowly from 3 kilometers behind Yuan Yen. The man wasn't much different from a human. He wasn't ugly, and he had 2 long black horns on his head. Meanwhile, Yuan Yen stopped moving as well, and then he turned around to gaze at the man. Meanwhile, the man suddenly vanished. Yuan Yan's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he crossed his arms and pushed them forward. A head-on collision. Rumble. The others hadn't even recovered from their shock when the space around them split apart, and then 2 figures retreated repeatedly. It didn't take long for Yuan Yen to return to the city wall, and the man stopped after moving 300 m back as well. Once he stopped, he gazed at Yuan Yen and smiled, again. Yuan Yen suddenly vanished on the spot. A ferocious expression flashed through the man's eyes, and then he smashed his fist forward. A head-on collision. The spectators felt like the sky was collapsing, and their fields of vision dimmed down. Because the space outside the city wall had been obliterated at the instant the man punched forward. Bang! A black figure suddenly retreated explosively from within that pitch-black space. It was the beast demon. However, he hadn't retreated very far when the beast demon suddenly leaped up and slammed against the black figure. Rumble. The destroyed space collapsed once more, and Yuan Yen was blasted flying towards the city wall. The beast demon didn't attack again. He just gazed at Yuan Yen. Show yourself. Yuan Yen didn't hesitate to leap forward. However, the beast demon suddenly vanished on the spot at the instant he flew forward. Hiss. The sound of space tearing resounded. A moment later, the beast demon had appeared in front of Yuan Yen, and he smashed his fist towards Yuan Yan's head. Yuan Yen suddenly pressed his palms together and formed a seal, and then a ray of black light suddenly swept out from within him. Rumble. The beast demon was blasted over 1 kilometer away. Meanwhile, Yuan Yen suddenly pressed his palm down towards the beast demon from afar. Hiss. The space above the beast demon had suddenly split apart, and then a huge black palm descended. The beast demon suddenly raised his head, stomped his right foot against the ground, and then shot up into the sky. He collided head-on once more. Rumble. The beast man collided with the enormous black palm, and the entire palm instantly exploded apart. Meanwhile, Yuan Yen suddenly appeared in front of the beast man. Yuan Yen didn't waste his breath at all and smashed his fist forward. This punch actually caused a strange sound to resound, and it was like the sound of chanting scriptures. Rumble. The spectators watched as the beast demon was blasted 3 kilometers away, and he just stopped when his chest split open and blood sprayed from it. At this moment, a black Buddhist seal was floating at the center of Yuan Yan's palm. Moreover, there was an ethereal image of a Buddha above Yuan Yen. After he blasted the beast demon back, Yuan Yen vanished on the spot. But a ray of white light suddenly flashed. Rumble. Yuan Yen returned to where he stood earlier. Yuan Yen turned around to look towards the right, and a woman was walking over slowly from over 1 kilometer away. She wore a tight black dress, and her ink-black hair hung down to her hips. Moreover, she held 2 ghost stones in her right hand. One was black and the other white. She wasn't human as well. Because her ears were slightly larger than humans, but it didn't affect her appearance at all. She gazed at Yuan Yen and grinned, so it's the heir of the devil Dao Yi line from the Divine Temple. The devil Buddha from the Divine Temple? Yi Xian frowned slightly. Yuan Yen is from the Divine Temple? Next to Yi Xian, Yi He's expression was extremely solemn. The Divine Temple actually took a liking to him. Yi Xian turned to look at Yi He. Is the Divine Temple very powerful? Yi He looked at Yi Xian as if he was looking at a freak. Don't you know about the Divine Temple? Yi Xian smiled. I know a little about Dao Yi. But not much. Yi He stared at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, I know you're very, very powerful, and so is your father. However, I must remind you that you absolutely cannot offend the Divine Temple. Moreover, you absolutely cannot speak disrespectfully even when mentioning the Divine Temple. Otherwise, you'll face imminent disaster. Remember this. Remember this. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. Every time I read a book, I always vote because it gives me a sense of satisfaction. Have you guys? FPZW. Chapter 1745. Divine Temple. Hearing Yi He's words, Yi Xian knew that he might have underestimated Divine Temple. The Divine Temple Kong Mi that he met before, he was probably just an odd job worker in Divine Temple. He was even more curious about this Divine Temple. Yi He suddenly patted Yi Xian's arm lightly. Are you listening to me? Yi Xian stopped thinking and said with a smile, I'm listening. He looked at Yi Xian, don't provoke Divine Temple, especially the Devil Dao Yi faction, understand? Yi Xian was curious, there are factions in this Divine Temple? He nodded, there are two factions, one is the Devil Dao Yi faction, the other is the Saint Dao Yi faction. Yi Xian asked, what's the difference? He said, I heard that the Devil Dao Yi faction emphasizes on following one's heart, not suppressing one's heart. Hence, they are people of character. And the Saint Dao Yi faction emphasizes on subduing one's heart, subduing oneself. Saying that, she shook her head, I don't know the specifics. However, whether it's the Saint Dao Yi faction or the Devil Dao Yi faction, they are both very, very scary. Even if it is this powerful beast demon clan, they will not easily provoke this temple. Yi Xian nodded. Actually, he was more curious about another faction. He remembered that Dad once said that other than the Divine Temple, there was another powerful faction. However, at that time, Dad did not finish his words. This Dad too. Isn't your faction my faction? Anyway, what's yours will be mine sooner or later, to hide it, really. At this moment, the black-dressed beast demon lady walked in front of Yuan Yen. She looked at Yuan Yen, the corners of her mouth lifted, come, let me experience the power of a devil faction disciple. Saying that, she waved her right hand. Boom! In an instant, the black-dressed beast demon lady and Yuan Yen appeared in an unknown starry sky, and this starry sky was actually a huge chessboard. Yuan Yen looked around. For the first time, there was a trace of seriousness in his eyes. The beast demon lady suddenly pointed two fingers at Yuan Yen, fall. Boom! In the depths of the distant starry sky, a ray of starlight fell straight down. Heaven and earth were the chessboard, and the stars were the pieces. In the distance, Yuan Yen did not dare to be careless. He took a step forward, put his palms together, and silently chanted. A giant black Buddha quietly formed behind him. With the appearance of this black Buddha statue, an extremely overbearing aura swept across the entire starry sky. At this moment, the entire starry sky shook violently as if there was an earthquake. Yuan Yen suddenly raised his head and roared, Buddha's fury exterminates all beings. As soon as he finished speaking, the black Buddha statue behind him suddenly raised its head and punched out. Boom! This punch directly blocked the starlight, causing the starry sky to tremble. However, the starlight did not disappear. Instead, both the Buddha statue and the starlight had become much dimmer. And at this time, the beast demon woman suddenly pointed at Yuan Yen again, fall. Rumble. Another ray of starlight fell straight down from the starry sky. This time, this ray of starlight was actually burning. A powerful force swept down, as if it wanted to crush the heavens and earth. It was incomparably shocking. Below, a trace of malevolence flashed through Yuan Yan's eyes. He suddenly stomped his right foot, Buddha's roar. As soon as he finished speaking, the black Buddha statue behind him suddenly raised its head and roared. A powerful force shot into the sky. Like lightning, the sound traveled thousands of miles, shaking the heavens and earth. Boom! The starlight above Yuan Yan's head shattered. The starlight shattered. Immediately after, the power soared into the sky and blasted the descending starlight. The starlight trembled violently, and countless flames sputtered in all directions. In an instant, the entire starry sky turned into a sea of fire. At this moment, Yuan Yen suddenly looked at the beast demon lady and roared, destroy. The Buddha statue behind him suddenly threw a punch at the beast demon lady. Rumble. A giant black fist tore through the sky, heading straight for the beast demon lady. The beast demon lady's expression was calm. She gently drew her fingers together and a white chess piece suddenly appeared in front of her. Boom! The white chess piece had actually blocked the black fist imprint. After a moment of silence, the beast demon lady opened her mouth, destroy. The white chess piece suddenly shook violently, and a powerful force erupted from it. In an instant, the black fist was destroyed. At the same time, the white chess piece transformed into a beam of white light that shot towards the distant Yuan Yan. In the distance, Yuan Yan's pupils constricted, and he suddenly pressed his palms together. Buddha wall. Behind him, the Buddha statue suddenly pressed its palms together, and a black barrier of light enveloped Yuan Yan. The white chess piece arrived. Rumble. The black barrier shook violently, but it wasn't damaged in the slightest. In the distance, the beast demon lady took a step forward and pointed forward, Starfall. As soon as she finished speaking, beams of starlight descended from the depths of the distant starry sky. In an instant, the entire galaxy shook violently. When they saw this, the expressions of everyone on the Great Wall of Heaven Mountain turned solemn. Yi Xian's eyes were also filled with a trace of solemnity. Whether it was the beast demon lady or Yuan Yan, both of them were really strong. Especially the beast demon lady's final move, Starfall. That could definitely destroy a minor world with ease. Yi Xian looked at Yuan Yan. If Yuan Yan couldn't block that move, then he would be finished. That wasn't right. The Yuan family definitely wouldn't let their genius be killed here. Because he'd already sensed some extremely powerful auras in the surroundings. The powerhouses of the Yuan realm had been paying attention to this place. When Yuan Yan saw countless beams of starlight descend from the starry sky, his expression turned extremely solemn. A moment later, a trace of ferocity flashed through his eyes. He took a step forward and pressed his palms together. The profound energy within his body surged like waves as he roared, "Immovable divine might." Behind him, the Buddha statue suddenly bent over and pressed its palms together to surround Yuan Yan. At this moment, countless beams of starlight descended. Rumble, 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 the beams of starlight slammed into the Buddha statue, and the entire starry sky began to crumble bit by bit. Because the starry sky could no longer withstand the power of the beams of starlight. As for Yuan Yan and the Buddha statue, they'd been drowned by the beams of starlight. On the Great Wall of Sky Mountain, He spoke solemnly, the experts of the Yuan realm still haven't made a move. Obviously, they believe that Yuan Yan can hold on. Yi Xian gazed at Yuan Yan and didn't speak. He turned to look at Yi Xian. If you were to face this woman, how many strikes would you need? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, how many strikes do you think I should use? He smiled and said, 1 strike at most. Yi Xian was speechless. She's already determined that I'm invincible and can easily instantly kill a mortal severing realm expert. My dear lady, why do you trust others so easily? Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly turned his head to look at Yuan Qingye, and Yuan Qingye was looking at him. Yuan Qing was slightly stunned when he saw Yi Xian look over, and then he smiled and looked away. He glanced at Yuan Qing who stood by Yi Xian's side. Why is he looking at you? Yi Xian smiled, perhaps he thinks I'm very handsome. Yi's face froze. Meanwhile, the starry sky of the battlefield had been completely obliterated, and Yuan Yan had appeared before them. He's still alive. At this moment, the Buddha statue behind Yuan Yan was extremely illusory and almost translucent. Moreover, his countenance was extremely pale and devoid of blood. He'd forcefully resisted Starfall. The beast demon woman who stood before Yuan Yan grinned, as expected of the heir of the Divine Temple's Devil Dao Yi bloodline. You really do have some ability. Yuan Yan wiped off a trace of blood from the corner of his mouth and said, You're from the book hall. The beast demon woman smiled, yes. Yuan Yan's face fell when he heard this. The book hall. Actually, most people didn't even know about the book hall and the Divine Temple because they very rarely appeared in the world. An extraordinary power. The book hall was an extraordinary power that wasn't inferior to the Divine Temple. He hadn't expected that the book hall would actually recruit beast demons from the beast demon race. The beast demon woman smiled. Let's continue. As she spoke, she was about to attack again. Meanwhile, a voice suddenly resounded from afar, Xian, let's go. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice and saw a woman standing over 1 kilometer away. She wore a white robe and held a folding fan in her hand. She seemed like a woman disguised as a man. However, what was surprising was that this woman looked exactly the same as a human. There was nothing different about her. The beast demon woman called Xian didn't attack again when she heard this. Her figure shook as she appeared in front of the woman. Big Sister Yumu, he's from the Divine Temple. The woman glanced at Yuan Yen. He isn't the only one in the Divine Temple. Xian was stunned, and then she said, there's someone else? The woman nodded. Xian hurriedly asked, who is it? The woman smiled, why are you so curious? Xian took the woman's hand and acted like a spoiled child. Big Sister Yumu, you just like to keep me in suspense. Yumu smiled, we're going to get busy. Let's go. As soon as she finished speaking, she took Xian's hand and turned around to leave. However, she'd only taken a few steps when she stopped and turned around to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian was stunned when he saw Yumu look at him. Why is she looking at me? Yumu gazed at Yi Xian for a short while, and then she smiled before she turned around and left. Xian glanced at Yi Xian as well, and then she asked, Big Sister Yumu, is that human a disciple of the Divine Temple? Yumu shook her head. Xian was slightly puzzled, then why are you looking at him? Yumu smiled, he isn't that weak. Xian couldn't help but glance at Yi Xian, he doesn't seem like a good person at first glance. Yumu was speechless. It didn't take long for them to vanish into the distant mountains. Next to Yi Xian, He looked at Yi Xian again. Why did she look at you just now? Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, perhaps she took a liking to me. As he spoke, he sighed softly, I've already kept a very low profile. However, an outstanding person is like a towering tree in a forest. No matter how you keep a low profile and hide, you'll still be noticed. Because you're too outstanding. Just like me. He gazed at Yi Xian with a dumbstruck expression. FPZW. Chapter 1746. Needless to say, He was slightly stunned. She didn't know what to say. It was the first time she'd seen a man like Yi Xian. Was he shameless? Not really. Because she felt that he was really formidable. But this fellow was a little narcissistic. Because that mysterious woman definitely didn't look at him because she liked him. Meanwhile, an old man appeared in front of Yuan Yen. The old man sized Yuan Yen up and asked, how do you feel? Yuan Yen shook his head, I'm fine. The old man nodded slightly, let's go back and rest for a while. Yuan Yen spoke solemnly, that woman is from the book hall. The book hall. The old man's expression gradually became solemn, and a trace of worry flashed through his eyes. I wonder if the beastman's attack this time is related to those transcendental powers. Yuan Yen fell silent, but his expression grew uglier. If those transcendental powers were fighting, then they would be the unlucky ones. After all, when those above fought, those below would be the unlucky ones. Meanwhile, the old man spoke abruptly, the beastmen retreated after their attack, and there's still no movement until now. I'm afraid something big is about to happen. The patriarch has already gathered all the patriarchs for a discussion. Come and listen. Yuan Yen nodded. The old man said, let's go. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished with Yuan Yen on the spot. He spoke abruptly from nearby, grandfather wants us to go to the Origin Hall to discuss something important. Let's go listen. Yi Xian smiled, should I go as well? Yi He nodded and smiled. Let's go listen. Let's understand the current situation. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, all right. Meanwhile, Xiao Ju suddenly walked over, and he looked at Yi He and smiled. Miss Yi He. Yi He nodded slightly. Young Master Xiao, what's the matter? Xiao Ju smiled, and then he looked at Yi Xian. May I know how I should address you, brother? Yi Xian smiled. Yi Xian. Xiao Ju cupped his fists. I'm Xiao Ju. Brother Yi, you look unfamiliar. Is this your first time here? Yi Xian nodded. It is indeed the first time. Xiao Ju smiled and said, if Brother Yi is free, you can come to the Xiao family as a guest. Yi Xian smiled and said, all right. Xiao Ju nodded. Brother Yi, talk to you later. As soon as he finished speaking, he cupped his fists, and then he led the disciples of the Xiao clan away. Beside Yi Xian, Yi He smiled and said, he wants to befriend you. Yi Xian glanced at Xiao Ju and said with a smile, let's go. With that, he and Yi He turned around and left. On the other side, Yuan Xiu glanced at Yi Xian and Yi He who were leaving and said with a smile, little brother Qing, what do you think of him? Yuan Qing said softly, very strong. Very strong. Yuan Xiu smiled and said, he is indeed very strong. I just don't know to what extent. Yuan Qing looked at Yuan Xiu and smiled. Won't we know after we fight? Yuan Xiu laughed and said, that's not good. It's truly rash of me to challenge him when he just arrived in the primordial realm. Moreover, we have an even stronger enemy now. Yuan Qing nodded. Meanwhile, Yuan Xiu suddenly smiled and said, actually, I want to fight you the most. Yuan Qing looked at Yuan Xiu and was slightly curious. Fight me for what? Yuan Xiu looked at Yuan Qing and said with a smile, my intuition tells me that you're even stronger than Big Brother. Yuan Qing shook his head. I'm not very interested in fighting. Yuan Xiu blinked. Are you really not the slightest bit interested in the position of heir? Yuan Qing smiled lightly and said, would you believe me if I said I'm not interested? Yuan Xiu laughed and said, I don't care if you're interested or not. In any case, I'm interested. Yun Qing smiled lightly. Then second brother, you have to work hard. Because Big Brother is practically the heir now. Yuan Xiu smiled and said, I'll work hard. Yuan Qing hesitated for a moment and said, Big Brother isn't bad, and so are you. Don't fight each other for that position. That's meaningless. Yuan Xiu laughed and said, don't worry. I want to fight for that position, but I'll use proper methods. I disdain and wouldn't dare to use such despicable methods. Those old fellows in the clan aren't blind. Even if I want to play dirty, they won't allow it. Yuan Qing nodded and said, no matter which one of you becomes the heir, I'll be convinced. Yuan Xiu smiled and said, then what do you dream of, third brother? Yuan Qing hesitated for a moment and then said, life is free. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Life is free. Yuan Xiu's expression gradually became serious. Life is free. Is that simple? No. It's not simple at all. What kind of strength does one have to reach in order to live free? Yuan Xiu shook his head and smiled, then turned around and left. Under Yi He's lead, Yi Xian arrived at a large hall. At this moment, there were already some people in the hall, and Yi Xian noticed that besides a few young people, the rest were basically Transcendence Realm experts. One had to admit that the great powers of the Yuan realm were extremely powerful. When he saw Yi Xian, Yi Yuan immediately looked at Yi Xian, smiled slightly, and nodded in greeting. Yi Xian also smiled, then followed Yi He to a seat near the back. The younger generation of the few great clans were all very far back. Beside Yi Xian, Yi He looked at the middle-aged man in the seat of honor in the distance. He's called Yuan Xiu, the current patriarch of the Yuan family, and he's at the peak of the Transcendence realm. Yi Xian looked at Yuan Qiu. This person's aura was completely absent, as if he didn't exist. The feeling this person gave him was just like the ancestor of the Tian clan, unfathomable. Yi, he said again, not far from him is the patriarch of the Xiao family, Shaolin. He's also one of the super elites of the Yuan realm. Yi Xian looked at Shaolin. Like Yuan Qiu, he couldn't feel any aura from him. This kind of elite was already independent of the world. At this moment, Yuan Qiu suddenly said, "Everyone's almost here, so let's begin." As he spoke, he looked at Shaolin. "Brother Xiao, you've been to the Beast Demon Mountain Range before, tell us what you think." Shaolin was silent for a moment, then said, "The Beast Demon clan may be even stronger than we expected." Yuan Qiu nodded slightly. "Speak." Shaolin said in a low voice, "I was stopped by the patriarch of the Beast clan before I could even enter. This person's strength is at the peak of the Transcendence realm, and not only that, his physical body should have reached the Transcendence realm. Moreover, it's at the peak. Transcendence realm." Hearing this, the expressions of everyone in the hall were very ugly. If it was just a Transcendence realm elite, it actually wasn't much, because there were many Transcendence realm elites in the Yuan realm. But if it was a Transcendence realm elite with a Transcendence realm body, then it wouldn't be simple. Such a Transcendence realm elite with a Transcendence realm body was too difficult to kill. Not to mention a single Transcendence realm expert, even 3 Transcendence realm experts would find it slightly difficult to kill such a demon beast with a Transcendence realm body. Shaolin continued, "As for that person that unified the Beast Demon clan, I haven't seen him. But since he was able to subdue a peak Transcendence realm expert, then his strength is at least above the Transcendence realm or even stronger." The expressions of everyone here grew even more unsightly when they heard this. An expert that was above the Transcendence realm. Actually, everyone in the hall was very clearly aware that how could a person that was able to unite the beast race and demon race be an ordinary person? He was absolutely not an ordinary person. But that person still hadn't shown himself until now. The unknown was even more terrifying. Meanwhile, Yuan Qi suddenly gazed at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "Didn't the Yi clan ask for reinforcements earlier? Where are they?" Yi Xian glanced at Yuan Qi. "Damn it. This old fellow intends to cause trouble." When they heard Yuan Qi, everyone looked at Yi Yuan. Yi Yuan spoke indifferently, "Yuan Qi, are you trying to cause trouble?" Yuan Qi spoke coldly, "Patriarch Yi Yuan, I'm not trying to cause trouble. It's just that all of you said you wanted to ask for reinforcements, so I'm quite curious." Yi Yuan was about to speak when Yuan Qiu suddenly gazed at Yi Xian. "Brother Yi Yuan, did you ask for this young friend?" Everyone looked at Yi Xian when they heard Yuan Qiu. At this instant, Yi Xian had become the center of attention. Yi Xian smiled, and then he walked forward. "It's me." Yuan Qi gazed at Yi Xian with undisguised ridicule in his eyes. "Have you come to eat for free?" Yuan Qi. Meanwhile, Yi Yuan suddenly slapped his palm forward. Yuan Qi's expression instantly changed drastically, and he raised his arm to block it. Bang! In front of everyone's eyes, Yuan Qi was blasted away. No one in the hall had expected that Yi Yuan would suddenly attack. For a time, all of them were slightly stunned. Yi Yuan gazed coldly at Yuan Qi, who stood outside the hall. "Yuan Qi, you can disrespect my Yi clan, but you can't disrespect the young master of my Yi clan. If it happens again, then the old man will definitely stop at nothing to kill you." Yuan Qiu immediately frowned when he heard this, and the expressions of the other Yuan clan experts turned cold as well. Yuan Qiu gazed at Yi Yuan with a calm expression. "Brother Yi, you're going too far." Yi Yuan laughed coldly. "Going too far? Yuan Qiu, do you think my Yi clan is easy to bully?" since it's like that. As he spoke, he waved his hand, give the order for all the members of the Yi clan to leave immediately. The Yi clan isn't going to play with all of you anymore. Who cares if you're from the Beastman clan or not? Let's go. As soon as he finished speaking, he stood up and left. On the other hand, the other experts of the Yi clan were stunned for a moment before they stood up and hurriedly followed after him. When he witnessed this scene, Shaolin hurriedly stopped Yi Yuan. Brother Yi, wait a moment. Brother Yi, this is only a misunderstanding. There's no need to do this. Yi Yuan spoke coldly, Brother Xiao, you know my character. Even though I, Yi Yuan, am a kind person, I'm not a pushover that anyone can bully. His Yuan clan has caused trouble in the past, and they're going to cause trouble again now. Since his Yuan clan is so formidable, then let them resist the Beastman clan. What use does my Xiao clan have? As soon as he finished speaking, he intended to leave, but he was forcefully stopped by Shaolin. He naturally couldn't allow Yi Yuan to leave just like that. If the Yi clan withdrew at this moment, then they wouldn't be able to do anything. That was like annihilation. After he stopped Yi Yuan, Shaolin gazed at Yuan Xiao, Brother Yuan, that Yuan Qi from your Yuan clan really went too far this time. No matter what, he doesn't have the qualifications to speak to Brother Yi Yuan like that. Make him apologize. Apologize. Why? Right at this moment, Yuan Qi, who just walked in from afar, spoke in a ferocious voice, why should the old man apologize to him? When has my Yuan clan ever feared the Yi clan? There was a reason why he dared to act so arrogantly. Besides the fact that the Yuan clan was stronger than the Yi clan, there was another reason, and it was because the Yuan clan had the Divine Temple backing them. Yuan Yen was the heir of the Divine Temple's Devil Dao Yi bloodline. With such a relationship, who would the Yuan clan have to fear? Shaolin glanced at Yuan Qi, and his gaze gradually turned icy cold. Meanwhile, Yuan Xiao spoke abruptly, apologize to Brother Yi. Yuan Qi looked at Yuan Xiao with a face full of astonishment. Yuan Xiao added, apologize. This time, his tone was slightly heavier. Yuan Qi's face fell. He knew that his patriarch was angry. Yuan Qi fell silent for a moment before he gazed at Yi Yuan, Patriarch Yi, I was rash just now. I'm sorry. Yi Yuan grunted coldly, and then he walked over to Yi Xian and was slightly apologetic, young master, I'm sorry for dragging you into such a mess. Alas. Yi Xian hurriedly said, since they don't welcome me, then why don't I leave? Yi Yuan's expression froze when he heard this. This young master seems like he wants to flee. Yuan Qi suddenly laughed coldly and ridiculed, you're afraid. Yi Xian frowned slightly, and he gazed at Yuan Qi, geezer, is there something wrong with you? There's no enmity between us, yet you've targeted me time and time again. Are you looking for trouble? Yuan Qi was instantly enraged, how dare you insult me? You. Yi Xian laughed coldly, insult you? Don't you think you're a retard? Let me ask you, what benefits do you get from targeting me like this? Do you? No, right? Since you don't, then why are you working so hard to target me? I can only think that you've eaten too much shit. Yuan Qi stared fixedly at Yi Xian, do you think you can do whatever you want with the Yi clan protecting you? Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at Yi Yuan, Senior, why don't we go join the Beastmen clan? We won't take this. Everyone. Shaolin looked at Yi Xian in shock. Damn, what kind of tricks does this guy have? He's going to betray us at the slightest disagreement? Yi Yuan was also somewhat confused. He couldn't keep up with this young master's train of thought. The expressions of the Yuan clan's experts became somewhat ugly. If Yi Yuan really brought the Yi clan to join the Beastmen clan, then they wouldn't be able to do anything. It could be said that if they wanted to defend the Yuan rank, none of the three forces could do without one. At this time, Yuan Xiu suddenly said, "You want to join the enemy?" Yi Xian looked at Yuan Xiu and smiled, "Yuan family head, let me ask you a question first. As far as I know, I have no enmity with the Yuan clan, so why do your people keep targeting me time and time again?" Yuan Xiu was silent. Actually, he didn't know as well. Because it was just as Yi Xian had said, Yi Xian had no enmity with the Yuan clan. It wasn't just the Yuan clan, even Yuan Qi had no reason to target Yi Xian. Yi Xian suddenly said, "Could it be that he's a spy sent by the Beastmen clan, and he's causing trouble on purpose to cause internal strife?" When he spoke up to this point, he feigned surprise as he looked at Yuan Qi. "No wonder you keep targeting me. So that's why. So that's why." Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Shaolin and the other experts of the Shao clan immediately looked at Yuan Qi with hostile gazes. Yuan Xiu looked at Yuan Qi as well, and he frowned. Yuan Qi was speechless. P.S. An online literature branch is being established in Guizhou Junyi today. I'm going to join in the fun and meet the big shots of online literature in Guizhou. I'm a little nervous because there are too many big shots. I'm going to take a picture with a few big shots today. Do any of you have any big shots that you like? I can ask for autographs for all of you. Leave a message in the book review section and tell me. Chapter 1747. Yuan Qi's expression was extremely ugly as he stared at Yi Xian. "You're trying to slander me." Yi Xian shook his head, "No. Since you think I'm slandering you, can you tell me why you're targeting me?" Yuan Qi's expression became even uglier. Why was he targeting Yi Xian? Actually, he just wanted to ridicule the Yi clan and embarrass them. However, he could not say that. If he said it now, not just the Yi clan, even the Shao clan would be angry. And he himself would definitely become the target of everyone because of this matter. At this moment, Yi Xian spoke again, "I only know the Yi clan here. You wouldn't be targeting me because of the Yi clan, right?" Yuan Qi looked at Yi Xian and did not say a word. The faces of the experts from the Yi clan darkened. Yi Xian smiled, "Since it's not the Yi clan and I have no grudges with you, then there's only one explanation. You might have received benefits from the Beastmen clan and deliberately came to cause trouble." "Bullshit!" Yuan Qi roared, "You're trying to slander me. You." Yi Xian shrugged and retreated to the side, not saying a word. Yuan Qi still wanted to say something, but Yuan Xiu suddenly said, "Shut up." Yuan Qi looked at Yuan Xiu with an ugly expression, "He's slandering me." Yuan Xiu looked at Yuan Qi coldly, "Shameful thing." Hearing this, Yuan Qi was shocked and did not dare to say another word. At this moment, Yuan Qing suddenly smiled, "This should be a misunderstanding." Hearing this, everyone in the hall looked at Yuan Qing. Yuan Qing looked at Yi Xian and smiled, "Previously, we heard that the Yi clan's senior went to get reinforcements, so we were all very curious about this reinforcements. When we found out that the reinforcements were Brother Yi," as he spoke, he grinned, "I believe that it isn't just Elder Yuan Qi who's curious, even everyone present here should be curious. Of course, I don't mean to look down on Brother Yi, but Brother Yi is just too young. That's why Elder Yuan Qi said that, but I believe, he's just curious about young Master Ye's strength and has no other ill intentions." Hearing Yuan Qing's words, Yuan Xiu's eyes flashed with a trace of admiration. Shaolin glanced at Yuan Qing as well, and he exclaimed with admiration in his heart. This young man isn't simple. In a few words, he changed the topic to Yi Xian. Because as Yuan Qing had said, Yuan Qi was not the only one who was curious about Yi Xian's strength. After all, the entire Yi clan had gone to welcome him. Not only were the experts of the Shao clan and the Yuan clan curious, even the experts of the Yi clan were curious. Because apart from Yi He, none of them knew what Yi Xian's combat prowess was, let alone where he came from. However, because of Yi Yuan, even if they had doubts in their hearts, they wouldn't ask him directly. Yi Xian glanced at Yuan Qing and said with a smile, "Actually, I think it's a misunderstanding as well. Because I don't think an elder of the Yuan clan would be so stupid." Yuan Qi's expression instantly became ferocious when he heard this, and he was just about to speak when Yuan Qiu suddenly looked at him and said, "Don't speak again." Yuan Qi, some of the Yuan clan experts in the surroundings glanced at Yuan Qi with slight displeasure. This fellow's intelligence has already been crushed by Yi Xian, so he might suffer a loss if he continues to speak. Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "Since it was a misunderstanding, then I will forgive Yuan Qi and the Yuan clan. You guys can continue talking." Yuan Qi, the experts of the Yuan clan were also dumbfounded. "What do you mean by forgiving us?" The more he listened, the more it sounded wrong. Yuan Qing smiled. "Brother Yi, you should have reached the Heaven Ascension boundary, right?" Heaven Ascension boundary. Everyone in the hall looked at Yi Xian when they heard this. An ordinary person wouldn't be able to discern it, but the people here weren't ordinary. Especially Yuan Qiu and the others. They discerned Yi Xian's boundary. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said with astonishment, "Brother Yuan Qing, you haven't reached the Heaven Ascension boundary?" Yuan Qing looked at Yi Xian. "Not yet." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "How is that possible? Isn't it very simple to reach the Heaven Ascension boundary in one's 20s? Everyone was stunned. Reaching the Heaven Ascension boundary was very simple? It actually wasn't difficult to reach the Heaven Ascension boundary, but it was extraordinarily difficult to reach the Heaven Ascension boundary in one's 20s. In any case, no one had ever reached the Heaven Ascension boundary at this age in the history of the Yuan realm. Yi Xian said, "Brother Yuan Qing, did you conceal your boundary? Otherwise, how could you still be at the void rank?" Yuan Qing gazed at Yi Xian, "I didn't conceal my boundary. I really am only at the void rank." Yi Xian blinked, "Isn't it very simple to reach the Heaven Ascension realm? Why haven't you reached the Heaven Ascension realm?" Yuan Qing was speechless. The experts of the Yuan clan glanced at Yi Xian with slightly hostile expressions. Damn it! Is this something a human should be talking about? It wasn't just the members of the Shao clan, even the younger generation had unsightly expressions on their faces. Meanwhile, Yuan Xiu suddenly smiled and said, "Brother Yi, since you were able to reach the Heaven Ascension realm at such a young age, I presume your combat strength is extraordinary. I'd like to seek guidance from Brother Yi." A challenge. Everyone looked at Yi Xian. Yuan Xiu was an extraordinary genius of the Yuan clan. Even though he hadn't reached the Heaven Ascension realm, he possessed the combat strength of a Heaven Ascension realm expert. Perhaps it was quite difficult for an ordinary person to surmount their realm of cultivation to do battle, but a genius of such a clan couldn't be called a monstrous genius if he couldn't surmount his realm of cultivation to do so. Yi Xian smiled, "You want to challenge me?" Yuan Xiu smiled, "A friendly spar." Yi Xian fell silent. Yuan Xiu blinked, "Brother Yi is at the Heaven Ascension realm while I'm only at the void rank. Brother Yi wouldn't refuse, right?" Everyone in the hall gazed at Yi Xian when they heard this. Yi Xian was at the Heaven Ascension realm while Yuan Xiu was only at the void rank. If Yi Xian refused, then not to mention the experts of the Shao clan and Yuan clan, even the members of the Yi clan would do the same. After all, they were challenging the strong as the weak. Yi Xian smiled, "I think it's meaningless to just spar like this. Why don't we make a bet?" "A bet?" Yuan Xiu gazed at Yi Xian, "I wonder what Brother Yi wants to bet." Yi Xian smiled, "How about this, we'll use a Saint rank Spring of Eternal Life as the bet." A Saint rank Spring of Eternal Life. The expressions of the members of the Yuan clan changed when they heard this. There were a total of 12 saint rank springs of eternal life in the Yuan rank, and the 3 clans each used 4. It could be said that the saint rank spring of eternal life was the core lifeline of a clan. A saint-level spring of eternal life was extremely precious. No one had expected Yi Xian to make such a big bet. Even Yi Yuan hadn't expected this. Yuan Xiu smiled, "Does Brother Yi have a spring of eternal life?" Yi Xian turned to look at Yi Yuan, and Yi Yuan immediately said, "If young master loses, my Yi clan is willing to give the Yuan clan a spirit rank spring of eternal life." The expressions of the experts of the Yi clan changed when they heard this. That was the lifeline of the Yi clan. If Yi Xian lost, then the Yi clan would lose a spirit rank spring of eternal life. That was no joke. One of the elders hesitated for a moment before he said, "Patriarch, this matter carries great implications. Should we discuss it with the other elders?" Yi Yuan glanced at that elder. "There's no need for that." That elder intended to say something else, but Yi Yuan suddenly spoke indifferently, "Elder Gu, I've made my decision. Don't say anything else." That elder laughed bitterly and didn't say anything else. If he said anything now, then it would be equivalent to openly questioning Yi Yuan's authority, and it would be disadvantageous to the entire Yi clan. Especially when there were outsiders here. No matter what internal conflict there was, it couldn't be exposed in front of outsiders. Yi Xian smiled, and then he gazed at Yuan Xiu. "What about the Yuan clan?" Yuan Xiu fell silent for a moment, and then he turned to look at Yuan Xiu. Yuan Xiu gazed at Yuan Xiu. "Are you confident?" Yuan Xiu shook his head. "I'm not 100% confident." He wasn't blindly confident because he knew nothing about Yi Xian. Of course, he wasn't a coward. Yuan Xiu's face instantly fell when he heard Yuan Xiu, and he was slightly hesitant. After all, it was a spirit rank spring of eternal life. It wasn't a joke. Meanwhile, Yuan Yen hesitated to speak. He wanted to say that he should do it, but if he did, then it would undoubtedly be like he was questioning Yuan Xiu. For a time, the entire Yuan clan was in a dilemma. Meanwhile, Yuan Qi suddenly spoke in a low voice, "Yi Xian, you're at the Heaven Ascension realm while Yuan Xiu is only at the Void rank. Do you think this is fair?" Yi Xian immediately cursed, "Fuck you. It's not fair, yet you're asking him to challenge me? Have you really eaten too much shit? Don't you understand the situation? If you don't, then allow me to remind you that it's one of you who is challenging me, not me." Yuan Qi stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "You're insulting me." Yi Xian laughed coldly. "I don't want to talk to a retard like you." As he spoke, he gazed at Yuan Xiu. "Are we going to fight or not? If we fight, then we can begin right now. If we don't, then we can disperse." Yuan Xiu turned around to gaze at Yuan Xiu. "Patriarch, I'm willing to pay with my life if I lose." Yuan Xiu gazed at Yuan Xiu for a short while before he said, "All right." He had no choice but to agree. If he didn't, then it would be utterly humiliating for the Yuan clan. Moreover, if he didn't agree, then it would be equivalent to rejecting Yuan Xiu, and it would be equivalent to killing a genius of the Yuan clan. The expressions of the experts of the Yi clan instantly fell when they saw the Yuan clan's carelessness. Even though Yi Xian's cultivation was slightly higher, Yuan Xiu wasn't an ordinary person. He was an existence who could surmount his realm of cultivation to kill someone. If Yi Xian lost, then the Yi clan would lose a spirit rank spring of eternal life, and it was a loss that the Yi clan couldn't afford. But at this moment, they had no other choice but to believe Yi Xian. Yuan Xiu smiled. "Brother Yi, shall we go somewhere else?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "Sure." Moments later, the group arrived at a valley in a mountain range. Yuan Xiu glanced at Yi Xian and Yuan Xiu and said, "The space here has been reinforced by us. The two of you can fight at will." As he spoke, he directly appeared on top of a mountain several thousand feet away. Yi Xian looked at Yuan Xiu. Can we begin? Yuan Xiu smiled and said, we can begin. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished on the spot. Make the first move. In an instant, the space above Yi Xian's head was torn apart. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword and slashed, and then he put it away and left. Boom! Everyone watched as Yuan Xiu's entire body was sent flying. He flew for a distance of 100,000 feet. When he stopped, only his soul remained. Not only that, but the surrounding mountains began to be annihilated bit by bit, and the reinforced space also began to disappear at this moment. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned. Chapter 1748. A single attack. He'd ended the battle with a single attack. At this moment, everyone in the surroundings had been petrified. None of them had expected this to happen. Even though Yuan Xiu was only at the void rank, he possessed the strength to kill Heaven Ascension Realm experts. Yet now, he hadn't even been able to resist a single attack from Yi Xian. Everyone here was gazing at Yi Xian as if they were looking at a monster. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly stopped moving, and then he turned around to gaze at Yuan Xiu. Patriarch Yuan, don't forget about your saint rank spring of eternal life. Yuan Xiu gazed at Yi Xian in silence. At this moment, he was shocked as well. He was very clearly aware of Yuan Xiu's strength, but he hadn't imagined that Yuan Xiu hadn't even been able to resist a single attack from Yi Xian. How terrifying was this young swordsman? Yuan Xiu was quite stunned as well. Actually, he hadn't utilized his full strength when he attacked just now because he wanted to probe Yi Xian's strength. However, he hadn't imagined that Yi Xian would actually defeat him with a single attack. He was stunned as well. Because he didn't know if it was Yi Xian's strongest attack or if it was a casual attack from Yi Xian. As if he'd thought of something, Yuan Xiu turned around to gaze at Yuan Xiu and laughed bitterly, Patriarch, I've lost. As he spoke, his soul started to burn. He'd paid with his life. He was very clearly aware of how important a saint-rank spring of eternal life was to the Yuan clan. Not to mention one life, even 10 lives wouldn't be enough to pay for it. Yuan Yen suddenly appeared in front of Yuan Xiu when he saw him burn his soul, and then he slapped Yuan Xiu on the shoulder. Bang! Yuan Xiu's soul instantly returned to normal. Yuan Yen gazed at Yuan Xiu. Victory and defeat are common, so why pay so much attention to it? Yuan Xiu shook his head and laughed bitterly, the saint-rank spring of eternal life. Yuan Yen stared at Yuan Xiu, you're more valuable than it. Not to mention a single spring of eternal life, even 10 springs of eternal life can't compare to you. Yuan Xiu was stunned when he heard this. Meanwhile, Yuan Xiu spoke abruptly, Yuan Yen is right. Even 10 springs of eternal life can't compare to you. As for victory or defeat, the Yuan family can afford to win, but we can also afford to lose. Furthermore, it's not a bad thing for you to lose today. Do you understand what I mean? Yuan Xiu nodded. I understand. Losing wasn't a bad thing. At this moment, he was like a cup filled with water that was suddenly emptied. All the confidence and arrogance he had in the past had vanished into thin air at this moment. And that was not a bad thing. The current Yuan Xiu was akin to being reborn. An expert with a strong heart was not afraid of failure. The more he failed, the stronger he would become. Suddenly, Yuan Yen gazed at Yi Xian, Brother Yi. Yi Xian stopped and turned to Yuan Yen with a smile. Are you dissatisfied? Yuan Yen looked at Yi Xian. I submit. The Yuan family can afford to lose. However, I want to challenge Brother Yi again. Yi Xian laughed, 2 springs of eternal life. 2 springs of immortality. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was shocked. This fellow doesn't even want to let go of the remaining 2 springs of eternal life of the Yuan family. As for Yuan Xiao and the others, their faces instantly fell. Yuan Yen hadn't expected that Yi Xian would actually go so far. Why is he so confident? Yuan Yen was about to speak when Yuan Qing suddenly smiled and said, "Why don't you allow me to play with Brother Yi?" All of them gazed at Yuan Qing. Yuan Qing gazed at Yi Xian and grinned, "Let's bet on 2 springs of eternal life." Yi Xian grinned, "All right." Yuan Qing smiled, and then he turned around and walked over to Yuan Xiao. He suddenly grabbed Yuan Xiao's right arm and didn't say anything. However, Yuan Xiao's pupils constricted while a trace of disbelief appeared in his eyes, but it quickly vanished. A moment later, Yuan Xiao turned around and gazed at Yi Xian. "The Yuan family is willing to bet." Willing to bet. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of the members of the Yi clan fell. Yuan Qing gazed at Yi Xian and smiled, "Young Master Yi, that sword technique from before was extraordinary indeed. I'd like to experience it." Yi Xian roared with laughter, and then he turned around to gaze at Yi Yuan, who was slightly worried. "Don't worry, Senior Yi Yuan, I won't lose." Yi Yuan smiled, "I believe in the young master." Yi Xian gazed at Yuan Qing and smiled, "Bring it on." Yuan Qing nodded slightly, and then he slowly clenched his right fist. In an instant, the heavens and the earth here instantly became illusory. On the other hand, Yi Xian held the sword in his hand while his eyes were filled with battle intent. Actually, he really wanted to fight right now. He really wanted to fight. However, he didn't want to fight a Heaven Ascension Realm expert because he'd been able to instantly ascend to the Heaven Ascension Realm earlier. He wanted to fight a Mortal Severing Realm expert. A Mortal Severing Realm expert that had no weaknesses. He didn't feel any pressure when facing an ordinary Mortal Severing Realm expert, and it was only interesting to fight a Mortal Severing Realm expert that had no weaknesses. However, he didn't underestimate this Yuan Qing who stood before him. Since Yuan Qing still dared to challenge him after witnessing that strike of his and even went so far, Yuan Qing's strength was absolutely not weak. Of course, he wouldn't fear Yuan Qing. When had he, Yi Xian, been afraid of anyone in the younger generation? He'd just have to fight. Yi Xian suddenly roared with laughter, and then he walked towards Yuan Qing with his sword in hand. In an instant, an extremely terrifying sword aura swept through the surroundings. Bang! In an instant, the space in the surroundings started to surge like boiling water. The expressions of everyone in the surroundings changed when they witnessed this scene. What a formidable sword aura! Moreover, Yi Xian's sword aura contained a strand of something else. Deciding life and death with a single strike. The core of Qing Er's deciding life and death with a single strike was actually a type of aura. Once I strike, I'll definitely kill you. Murderous aura. This was the unique aura of Qing Er's deciding life and death with a single strike, and it was murderous aura. At this moment, there was only a single thought in Yi Xian's mind as he gazed at Yuan Qing, and that was to kill him with a single strike. Just one strike. It couldn't be any more. The more confident Yi Xian was, the stronger the sword aura became. At this moment, many Heaven Ascension stage experts in the surroundings were unable to endure this sword aura, and they retreated explosively. Even some Mortal Severing stage experts found it slightly difficult to endure. However, this sword aura was still growing stronger and stronger. At this moment, Yuan Xiao's face had completely darkened. In the distance, Yuan Qing was like a small boat surrounded by a violent storm in the ocean, because Yi Xian's murderous aura was targeted at him. At this moment, Yuan Qing's face didn't have the carefree expression from before, and his eyes were filled with seriousness. At this moment, Yi Xian's footsteps suddenly sped up. In an instant, the sword aura suddenly surged back into his body, and the sword in his hand suddenly trembled violently. A sword cry shot into the sky and into the clouds. Just as Yi Xian was about to strike, an afterimage suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. The person who had attacked was none other than the Shao clan's patriarch, Xiao Ju. Xiao Ju said with a smile, "Little friend, can today's competition be delayed?" Yi Xian laughed heartily, "Sure, but my sword can't be delayed." As his voice fell, he suddenly drew his sword and slashed. One sword to decide life and death. It was a simple one sword to decide life and death, and there was no sword-drawing technique added. The instant this sword was struck, Xiao Ju's face instantly changed. He couldn't dodge in time, and could only face it head-on. He directly blasted out a punch. Rumble. A flash of sword light suddenly erupted in front of the two of them, and in an instant, Xiao Ju was sent flying. He flew for a distance of 1,000 feet, and the moment he stopped, his entire right arm disappeared. Not only that, his entire body also became illusory in an instant. His body was about to shatter. Seeing this scene, everyone present was greatly shocked. This was Shaolin, one of the 3 super experts of the primordial realm. Yuan Qiu's eyes were also filled with disbelief. The might of Yi Xian's sword had greatly exceeded his expectations. It wasn't just Yuan Qiu, Yi Yuan and the others at the side were also extremely shocked at this moment. That sword strike from Yi Xian earlier was truly too terrifying. This was a sword strike from a 20-year-old youth. The most shocked was still Shaolin in the distance. His body didn't disappear because he'd forcefully preserved it with a secret technique, but he'd also suffered a heavy injury. That sword strike from before had almost destroyed his soul. Although his consciousness could survive, if his soul was destroyed, it would be extremely harmful to him. The reason he came out to stop Yi Xian was mainly for the sake of the overall situation. In this battle, regardless of whether Yi Xian or Yuan Qing won, the primordial realm was finished. Why was everyone united now? It was because they were resisting the Beastmen clan. But why were they resisting the Beastmen clan? It was because they were guarding the spring of eternal life. No matter if the Yuan clan or the Yi clan lost, then this alliance would collapse. Without the spring of eternal life, what was the point of guarding it? Moreover, even if they lost, the other party might not really hand over the spring of eternal life. At that time, everyone would have a conflict, and they would still be finished. Therefore, he had no choice but to stop Yi Xian. However, he really didn't expect that the might of Yi Xian's sword strike would actually be so powerful that it almost killed him. This was too terrifying. At this moment, Yi Xian blinked. "Senior, are you all right?" Shaolin glanced at Yi Xian. "Little friend, I've underestimated you." Underestimated. Everyone present was looking at Yi Xian. Not only Shaolin, but they'd also underestimated Yi Xian. No, there was one person who hadn't underestimated him. That was Yi He. Yi He had believed in Yi Xian from the beginning. She wasn't worried for Yi Xian at all. Instead, she hoped that Yi Xian wouldn't use his full strength. She was afraid that Yi Xian's full strength would directly destroy the Great Wall of Heavenly Mountain. Fortunately, Yi Xian hadn't used his full strength. As if thinking of something, Yi He suddenly looked at Yi Xian and asked, "Young Master Yi, how much strength did you use just now?" Yi Xian said with a smile, 50%, 50%. Everyone was petrified when they heard this. Shaolin looked at Yi Xian with an extremely interesting expression. 50%. This fellow only used 50% of his strength just now. Would I still be alive if I used all my strength? Shaolin was shocked. However, he still felt a lingering fear. Yi Xian sheathed his sword, turned around, and left. Right at this moment, Yuan Qing, who hadn't been born yet, spoke abruptly, "Brother Yi, what was that sword technique called?" Yi Xian stopped and turned around to look at Yuan Qing, and he smiled. "One sword to decide life and death." One sword to decide life and death. Yuan Qing spoke softly, what a great one sword to decide life and death. There's actually such a terrifying sword technique, Yi Xian smiled, I created it myself. It's not bad, right? Created it himself. Yuan Qing's expression froze. Meanwhile, Xiao Ta, who resided within Yi Xian's body, couldn't help but ask, young master, isn't that sword technique big sister Tianming's? Yi Xian said in his heart, isn't Qing Er's technique mine? Is there any difference between what she created and what I created? Is there? Xiao Ta fell silent for a moment before he said, young master, if you're going to be so shameless, then I have nothing to say. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. I was too tired from yesterday's meeting. Sorry. Chapter 1749. Speechless. Xiao Ta was indeed speechless. This young master was simply too shameless. How could he say such things? A person who was shameless was truly invincible. At this moment, Yuan Qing, who was opposite Yi Xian, suddenly said, Brother Yi, did you really create this sword technique? Obviously, he was still doubtful of Yi Xian's words. Yi Xian smiled, Brother Yuan, you don't believe me? Yuan Qing nodded honestly. Yi Xian laughed. Brother Yuan Qing, I created that move when I was fighting against Brother Yuan Xiu just now. Yuan Qing, Xiao Ta couldn't help but ask, young master, the sword drawing technique is master's, right? Yi Xian's face darkened, Xiao Ta, the sword drawing technique is dad's. Then let me ask you, are dad's things going to be passed down to me in the future? Xiao Ta blurted out, then it will only be yours after master is dead. Yi Xian, Xiao Ta said in a low voice, young master, can you pretend you didn't hear what I said just now? Yi Xian chuckled, not saying a word. Xiao Ta hurriedly said, it's all created by you. You created the sword determining life and death, the sword drawing technique is also created by you. Young master, you are the most awesome. Yi Xian, at this moment, Yuan Qing suddenly spoke softly from afar, Brother Yi is truly an extraordinary genius. Yi Xian laughed, I think so too. Yuan Qing was speechless, you are really not humble. Yi Xian didn't continue to talk about the duel. If he continued and Yuan Qing lost, the Yuan clan would definitely fall out with him, which would be very disadvantageous to the Yi clan. After all, the Yi clan's overall strength was not as good as the Yuan clan's, and they had the Beast clan as their enemy. Hence, this ending was good for everyone. Moreover, Yuan Qing was a good person. There was no need to make him a mortal enemy. Yuan Xiu and the others heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts when they saw that Yi Xian didn't mention the matter of a one-on-one battle. This was equivalent to giving the Yuan clan a way out. Not only the Yuan clan, but the Yi clan also heaved a sigh of relief. If this continued, then they really wouldn't be able to clean up the mess. What happened now was the best outcome. Yi Xian walked up to Yi Yuan and said with a smile, Senior Yi Yuan, I want to find a quiet place to go into seclusion. Yi Yuan hurriedly said, Young lord, follow me. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Yuan left with Yi Xian, and he hurriedly followed after them. The experts of the Yi clan also followed. At this moment, when these experts of the Yi clan looked at Yi Xian, their eyes were filled with respect. They had respected Yi Xian before, but that was only because of Yi Yuan. But now, their respect was because of Yi Xian's strength. It didn't take long for the experts of the Yi clan to leave. Yuan Xiu fell silent for a moment before he said, Yuan Qi, you're not allowed to speak in public from this moment onward. Otherwise, I'll kill you. Yuan Qi's expression was quite unsightly. Yuan Xiu gazed at Yuan Qi with killing intent in his eyes, did you hear me? Yuan Qi was shocked in his heart, and he hurriedly nodded, I did. Yuan Xiu glanced coldly at Yuan Qi. He really wanted to kill Yuan Qi. It was exactly because of Yuan Qi that the Yuan clan had lost a saint-rank spring of eternal life. His heart was bleeding. He'd never thought of going back on his word because if he did, then the Yuan clan would be looked down upon by everyone. However, a spring of eternal life. Yuan Xiu couldn't help but glance at Yuan Qi when he thought up to here. He really wanted to kill Yuan Qi. Why target Yuan Qi for no reason? Yuan Qi hurriedly lowered his head and didn't dare speak. He knew that he was in trouble when Yi Xian defeated Yuan Xiu. I offended someone I shouldn't have. I'm bloody unlucky. Meanwhile, Yuan Xiu suddenly gazed at Yuan Qing. Were you able to resist that attack from before? Yuan Qing nodded, 60%. Yuan Xiu smiled, that's enough. If Yuan Qing had a 60% chance of taking on Yi Xian's attack, it meant that he could fight Yi Xian. Yuan Qing continued, but if he used his full strength, then I wouldn't be able to resist it. 50%. Yuan Xiu frowned. Did that fellow really only use 50% of his strength? He was slightly doubtful, but Yi Xian was a super swordsman at any rate. Swordsmen like him usually disdain to show off and lie. Meanwhile, Yuan Yan spoke abruptly, he's not simple, especially that sword technique of his. If he really created it, then it's too terrifying. Yuan Qing nodded as well, if he really created it, then he really is an extraordinary genius. That sword technique. As he spoke, a trace of fear flashed through his eyes, the strength of that sword technique was unprecedented. Yuan Xiu smiled, actually, it's not a bad thing. Today, the three of you were able to see a genius from outside the Yuan realm. I believe that all of you will have gained a lot of comprehension. Yuan Qing nodded, there's always someone better out there. Yuan Yan nodded as well, don't underestimate anyone. Yuan Xiu roared with laughter. At this moment, he suddenly felt that even though they'd lost a spirit-grade spring of eternal life, the Yuan clan didn't have to worry about prosperity with these three brothers around. The gloominess on the faces of the other Yuan clan experts was swept away as well. The most important thing for a large clan wasn't just its foundation, but its younger generation as well. Because the younger generation was related to the clan's future. As for the Yuan clan's younger generation, they weren't just strong, they were united. Shaolin suddenly sighed softly. Actually, he was quite envious of the Yuan clan. The geniuses of the Yuan clan's younger generation were truly united. Even if they competed, it was a fair competition. Moreover, Yuan Yan's character was good, and he was able to convince everyone. Unlike the Shao clan. Even though Shao Ju was the leader of the Shao clan's younger generation, the Shao clan's younger generation wasn't that harmonious. Moreover, Shao Ju's methods were too ruthless. Meanwhile, Yuan Xiu looked at Shaolin and cupped his fists, thank you, Brother Shao, for helping us out today. Shaolin withdrew his thoughts and shook his head with a smile, it's what I should do. Our top priority is to deal with the Beastmen clan. It's better to avoid misunderstandings like this. Yuan Xiu smiled, it won't happen again. Shaolin nodded, old man, go back and recuperate. Farewell. With that, he left with the experts of the Shao clan. As for Yuan Xiu, he left with everyone. Not long after everyone left, a phantom suddenly appeared in the field, and the phantom said softly, a self-created sword technique. There's actually such a monstrous genius among the humans. As he spoke, he gradually vanished. The battle at the canyon made Yi Xian famous in a single battle. Now, Yi Xian could be said to be the most famous person in the entire Yuan realm. His fame was even above the geniuses of the Yuan clan. He defeated Yuan Xiu with one strike, heavily injured Shaolin with another. And Yi Xian was only in his 20s. In the entire Yuan realm, countless people were getting more and more curious about Yi Xian. Beastmen Mountain Range. A woman sat under an ancient tree, and in her right hand was an ancient human scroll. The woman was reading it with great interest. The woman was Yumu. At this moment, a phantom suddenly appeared in front of Yumu, and the phantom said a few words. Yumu nodded, got it. The phantom left silently. At this moment, Xian appeared beside Yumu. Xian said in a deep voice, I've found out about Yi Xian's background. He's the young master of the All-Heaven City. All-Heaven City. Yumu narrowed his eyes, the All-Heaven City with the Sword Alliance? Xian nodded, not long ago, the Ancient Heaven clan of the Ancient Heaven realm offended this fellow. This fellow brought the All-Heaven City to the Ancient Heaven realm and destroyed the Ancient Heaven realm. This person's background isn't simple. Yumu smiled, how is he not simple? Xian said in a deep voice, his father. In other words, the green-clothed Swordmaster. This person is rather mysterious, and I can't find out his background. After a moment of silence, Yumu said softly, continue the investigation. Xian nodded, and as if she thought of something, she said, I heard that Yi Xian is very lecherous. Lecherous. Yumu looked at Xian and smiled, you want to use a honey trap? Xian laughed, my man wants to be invincible in the world. If that Yi Xian can defeat Yumu, I don't mind being his woman. But that's impossible, isn't it? Yumu shook his head and smiled, don't look down on others. Xian giggled, I'm not looking down on him, but Yumu, you're too strong. Yumu handed the ancient book in his hand to Xian, look at this. Xian asked, this is? Yumu smiled, I asked for the heavenly crippling chess manual from the book hall for you. Hearing this, Xian was stunned. In the next moment, she hugged Yumu and kissed him, saying excitedly, all right Yumu, I love you to death. Huh. Yumu shook his head and smiled, I've seen it. It's not bad, and it's very suitable for you now. Go and cultivate. Xian nodded, okay. Saying this, she put the book away and turned to leave. Under the tree, Yumu leaned against the tree behind her and slowly closed her eyes, one sword to decide life and death. What a domineering name. To be able to create such a sword technique. I really want to meet him and have a spar with him. Obviously, she didn't believe that it was created by Yi Xian. Yi Yuan brought Yi Xian to a small valley. Yi Yuan smiled, young master, this is where I usually cultivate. The surrounding space is reinforced by a formation, so it's very quiet. Yi Xian looked around and said with a smile, thank you. Yi Yuan shook his head and smiled, young master, you're too polite. Young master, take your time cultivating. I'll take my leave first. Saying this, he looked at Yi He, let's go. Yi He blinked and said, grandfather, I'll have a chat with young master Yi. You go first. Yi Yuan glared at Yi He, what are you talking about? Don't move and disturb young master, you. Yi Xian suddenly smiled, I'll have a chat with Miss Yi He. Yi He giggled, grandfather, hurry up and leave. Yi Yuan was a little helpless. He didn't disturb the two of them and turned to leave. However, before he left, a smile appeared on his face. His granddaughter seemed to have a good relationship with the young master. This was great news. He, after Yi Yuan left, Yi He hurriedly walked to Yi Xian, you can kill the beast demon mountain range, right? Yi Xian hesitated, then nodded. Yi He hurriedly asked, when did you kill them? Yi Xian was silent for a moment, then said, depends on my mood. Xiao Ta suddenly couldn't help but say, young master. Are you sure you can? Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. Damn, I know I can't. But this girl thinks I can. Since he had already acted tough, he couldn't possibly take it back. Since he couldn't take back his act, he would continue acting. Chapter 1750. Actually, Yi Xian really wanted to explain that he really couldn't destroy the universe with one sword. He wasn't Qing, But now this lady firmly believed that he could. This made him very speechless. He suddenly said, according to what I know, there is a very powerful person in the Beast Demon clan. He is the one who unified the Beast Demon clan. If you meet him, you must be careful. Yi Xian nodded, I will. He smiled, then you practice, I won't disturb you anymore. Yi Xian smiled, all right. He left. At this moment, Xiaofan suddenly said, Young lord, master has a mysterious force which is even stronger than temple. Do you know what it is? Yi Xian asked, you know? Small Tower snickered. Of course. Yi Xian quickly asked, what force is it? Xiaofan smiled, guess. Yi Xian's face instantly darkened. Damn it, this Xiaofan will sell him out sooner or later. Ignoring Xiaofan, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. Hong. In an instant, a powerful sword force swept out from his body. Previously when he fought with Yuan Qing, he had some enlightenment. One sword to determine life and death. He realized that previously, he didn't fully understand this sword skill created by Qing. What is one sword to determine life and death? This sword will determine your life and death. Understanding it this way is not wrong. But, this is determining your life and death, not self-indulgence. After all, you can't do whatever you want. Force. This sword skill's force is the core. Not sword force, but killing force. He had always misunderstood one point. He thought that Qing's sword skill was particular about sword force. Actually it was not. Qing's force is killing force. This sword skill is used to kill. Not only this sword skill, to Qing, the sword is also used to kill. Therefore, this sword technique was to kill. The stronger the killing aura, the more powerful the life and death sword would be. It could also be said to be killing intent and killing intent. Previously, when facing Yuan Qing, his killing intent was unprecedentedly strong, and it was precisely because of this that his one sword determines life and death suddenly became so terrifying. It was just a power, but it made some heaven ascension experts not dare to face it directly. Yi Xian realized that if this sword technique was paired with the crazed demon bloodline, it might be even stronger. Thinking of this, Yi Xian directly activated the crazed demon bloodline. Boom! In an instant, Yi Xian was covered in blood. Yi Xian took a step forward and a powerful murderous aura swept out from the sword in his hand. Rumble. In the surroundings, the reinforced space began to crumble bit by bit. Yi Xian gripped the sword in his hand tightly. The murderous aura around him grew stronger and stronger, and the surrounding space was rapidly being destroyed. At this time, Yi Yuan suddenly appeared on the scene. He hurriedly said, Young lord. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at Yi Yuan, his eyes bloodshot. Being stared at by Yi Xian like this, Yi Yuan's heart trembled. What a powerful murderous aura and killing intent. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly returned to normal. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes, and a moment later, he looked at the sword in his hand, his expression incomparably solemn. He found a problem, that was when he used Qing one sword determines life and death, as long as he added killing intent, his killing intent would increase crazily, just like the crazed demon bloodline that had lost its mind. At this moment, he suddenly felt that Qing might not have been a good person in the past. This sword technique was meant to kill. And the greater the killing intent, the greater the power. Yi Xian could not help but ask, Xiaofan, what kind of person was Qing in the past? Xiaofan was silent. Yi Xian frowned slightly, why aren't you saying anything? Xiaofan said, I don't dare to say bad things about Sister Tianming. Yi Xian smiled, just saying, as long as I'm here, Qing Er won't blame you. Xiao sighed softly, Sister Tianming. Young master, I can only say that Sister Tianming is a bit anti-human. No, she's a bit anti-universe. The feeling she gives me is that she views human life as worthless. Of course, except for you. Except for you, she has never been nice to Master. Moreover, Master doesn't really want to provoke her, or should I say, she's the only person Master doesn't want to provoke. Yi Xian said with a smile, why? Xiao Ta smiled bitterly, because once she gets serious, she might even destroy the universe. Yi Xian, Xiao Ta said again, anyway, after so long, I only realized that when she's facing you, she's like a woman, but when she's not facing you, she's like an emotionless god. No, she's scarier than a god. Scarier than a god. Yi Xian smiled. All of a sudden, he kind of missed Qing. He didn't know where she was now. Once the matter in the Yuan realm was over, he decided to find Qing Er. At this time, Yi Yuan suddenly said softly, young master? Yi Xian collected his thoughts and looked at Yi Yuan, I'm sorry, I made too much of a commotion just now. Yi Yuan smiled bitterly, I underestimated young master's strength. Young master, I'll bring you to another place. Yi Xian said with a smile, okay. Yi Yuan brought Yi Xian to a deathly silent star region. Yi Xian looked around, the star region was deathly silent, there was no sign of life. Yi Yuan said with a smile, young master, you can cultivate here, it doesn't matter how much of a commotion you make. Yi Xian said with a smile, that's exactly what I wanted. Yi Yuan cupped his fists, then take your time to cultivate, young master. Call me if you need anything. With that, he turned and disappeared. In the entire deathly silent star region, only Yi Xian was left. Yi Xian looked around, then took a step forward. In an instant, the crazy demon bloodline in his body surged again, Yi Xian's lips curled into a sinister smile, he stabbed out with his sword. Where the tip of the sword fell, a blood-red sword light suddenly condensed. Boom! In an instant, the entire deathly silent star region boiled, and then it was annihilated bit by bit. Everything was being annihilated. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. Just like that, he felt the surrounding stars being annihilated. This feeling, he had to admit, was wonderful. With one sword, nothing could survive. At that moment, he suddenly had a new discovery. He discovered that Qing Er's one sword determines life and death was not limited to one person's life and death. Her one sword determines life and death was broader, she could determine the life and death of an entire world, an entire universe. At that moment, he discovered that Qing Er was just like this vast universe, so powerful that there was no end to her strength. For the first time, he felt Qing Er's strength and terror. This was the first time. He knew that Qing Er was strong, but he did not have that kind of concept. Now, he deeply felt Qing Er's terror. Qing Er's sword Dao's scope was greater than this universe. Thinking of this, Yi Xian could not help but smile bitterly. If he wanted to surpass Qing Er, he didn't know how long it would take. Of course, he would not be discouraged. In any case, the stronger Qing Er was, the happier he was. They were siblings, if Qing Er was strong, wouldn't that mean that Yi Xian was strong? Thinking of this, Yi Xian could not help but laugh. His mentality was quite good. In the following time, Yi Xian continued to study the one sword determines life and death. At this moment, his one sword determines life and death had undergone a qualitative change. Even without the addition of the sword drawing technique, his one sword determines life and death could easily kill a Heaven Ascension realm expert. Even if an ordinary mortal severing realm expert were to withstand it, they would definitely be severely injured. And if he added the sword-drawing technique, then his one sword determines life and death would become even more terrifying. Its power was at least twice as strong as before. In addition, if he used the power of his bloodline, then the power of the one sword determines life and death would become even stronger. The power of his bloodline was far too great for this one sword determines life and death. In the Yi clan hall. At this time, the Yi clan and the other experts were all present, and they all had bright smiles on their faces. Because just now, the Yuan clan had delivered a Saint-tier spring of eternal life. And now, the Yi clan had a total of 4 Saint-tier springs of eternal life. This was equivalent to a windfall from the sky. Chapter 1751. In the dead silence of the starry sky, Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the air with his hands on his knees. His eyes were slightly closed and he was like an old monk in meditation. Enlightenment. During this period of time, he had many insights while cultivating one sword to determine life and death. The breakthrough of one sword to determine life and death seemed to have opened a new world for him. Not only that, but he was also digesting God Ye's sword principles and ideas. He had to admit that God Yi was indeed not simple. Even now, he had the strength to instantly kill Heaven Ascension Realm, but he still felt that God Yi was not simple. One should know that the martial arts civilization of God Ye's immortal world was far behind the Yuan realm and all Heaven City. Yet, God Yi could cultivate to the Heaven Ascension Realm in that place. He was not an ordinary monster. Not only that, he found that God Yi had his own ideas about the mortal severing realm. After a while, Yi Xian sighed softly. If God Yi had not met such excellent parents like Yi Lingtian and Tian Yi, he would probably be a character with a protagonist's halo. Especially Tian Yi. Tian Yi did not care about God Yi at all. As for Yi Lingtian, he was actually very, very puzzled. Yi Lingtian was not an ordinary person, but a true proud daughter of heaven. How could such a person like Tian Yi take a fancy to an idiot like him? Who the hell was Tian Yi? Tian Yi was speechless. In the starry sky, Yi Xian was quietly comprehending. Not only was he comprehending his one sword to determine life and death and sword-drawing technique, but he was also studying the mortal severing realm. What was the mortal severing realm? The greatest difference between the mortal severing realm and the Heaven Ascension realm was actually the use of the dimension of time. The Heaven Ascension realm could cultivate a dimension of time that belonged to them, while the mortal severing realm could materialize this dimension of time that was cultivated. Space, time. Yi Xian found that from his cultivation until now, he found that no matter how he cultivated, he could not leave space and time. It used to be space, but now it was time. What was above time? It was consciousness. However, he found that even consciousness needed to be entrusted with time. In that case, what was above time? After a moment of silence, Yi Xian said, "Xiao Ta, what do you think is more awesome than time?" Xiao Ta said, "A lot." Yi Xian quickly asked, "What?" Xiao Ta said, "Thick skin." Yi Xian frowned. "What thick skin?" Xiao Ta said, "Thick skin, shameless people are invincible in the world." "Of course. Young master, I'm not talking about you. Don't think too much. Really, I swear on master's character that I'm really not talking about you. Don't hold a grudge." Yi Xian's face darkened. Damn it. He really wanted to sell Xiao Ta at a low price. As if he had thought of something, Yi Xian suddenly said indifferently, "Xiao Ta, how dare you speak ill of Qing Er? I'll tell Qing Er when the time comes. F***ck. Xiao Ta immediately jumped up. "Young master, when did I speak ill of Sister Tianming? Don't make things up." Yi Xian laughed mischievously. "Do you think Qing Er believes you or me?" Xiao Ta jumped up. Young master, this is not a joke. You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. Yi Xian shrugged his shoulders. It's not that I can't say whatever I want occasionally. Xiao Ta hurriedly begged. Young master, big brother, I won't speak ill of you anymore. Also, don't speak ill of me, okay? You. Let me go. I'm just a Ta. Other than being a little mischievous occasionally, I have no other flaws. I'll definitely turn over a new leaf. I promise. Yi Xian blinked. Xiao Ta, being such a coward isn't your style. Don't be afraid of Qing. If Qing hits you, hit her. I believe you can do it. Xiao Ta fell to the ground. He leaned against the corner of the wall and hung his head dejectedly. Hit my head. She can turn me into ashes with just one look. Arya is so awesome, but in front of her, she's also as obedient as a little girl. Yi Xian was speechless. Xiao Ta said again, Young master, didn't you just say that there's something more powerful than time? Yi Xian asked, you know? Xiao Ta laughed. I don't know. However, I often follow master. I know some of the things that master said. He once said something about time. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, what did dad say? Xiao Ta said in a deep voice, space, limitless eternity, time, limitless eternity. Hearing that, Yi Xian frowned slightly. Limitless eternity? Limitless eternity? Xiao Ta nodded. Yes. He said something like that. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, what does that mean? Xiao Ta said, Young master, you're making things difficult for me. I'm just a pagoda. Why would I study this? Yi Xian smiled and said, then what do you study every day? Or, Xiao Ta, do you have any dreams? Xiao Ta smiled and didn't speak. Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. Xiao Ta, why do you smile so wretchedly? Xiao Ta immediately said angrily, is my smile wretched? Yi Xian nodded. I think it's quite wretched. Xiao Ta snorted coldly. Young master, let me tell you. Although I'm just a Xiao Ta, I also have dreams. Yi Xian smiled and said, what dreams do you have? Xiao Ta thought for a while and then said, I want to be the first pagoda in the universe. Yi Xian blinked. If you follow dad, won't you be the first pagoda in the universe? Xiao Ta shook his head. No, no. I want to rely on myself to become the first pagoda in the universe. Do you know why I don't follow master? Because I want to rely on myself. I'm not like some people who rely on dad or sister. I want to rely on myself. Oh, young master, I'm not talking about you. Really, I'm really not talking about you. Don't take it personally. Yi Xian said seriously, Xiao Ta, I really admire you for having such a great ambition. How about, you go train by yourself? Xiao Ta hurriedly shook his head. No, no. I want to follow you. Yi Xian asked, why? Xiao Ta subconsciously said, it's safer to follow you. Yi Xian's expression froze. Safe? What the heck? Don't you want to train? Xiao Ta said again, of course, I, Xiao Ta, will never call anyone. Even if I die, I, Xiao Ta, will die with integrity. You want me to call someone? That's definitely not possible. Yi Xian smiled and said, Xiao Ta, don't worry. Next time, if there's a strong enemy, I won't call anyone. I'll self-destruct with you. You'll be the tower with integrity, and I'll be the person with integrity. What do you think? Xiao Ta hesitated for a while, then said, Young master, if you really meet someone you can't defeat, you can call someone. Yi Xian hurriedly shook his head. Next time, I won't call anyone even if I die. If I can't defeat them, we'll self-destruct. Xiaota said in a deep voice, "Young master. It's not shameful to call someone. You can call someone." Yi Xian shook his head again. "I won't call anyone even if I die. I'll self-destruct with you." Xiaota was a little confused. "Even if you don't call anyone, you can just self-destruct. Why do you have to self-destruct with me? Am I innocent?" Yi Xian said seriously, "We'll share blessings and difficulties together." Xiaota hesitated for a while, then said, "Young master, you don't have to be so stubborn. If we really can't defeat them, we can still run. Fighting to the death is the behavior of a reckless man. As the saying goes, as long as there's life, there's hope." Yi Xian said, "No, I'll self-destruct with you." Xiaota suddenly couldn't help but scold angrily. "Do you have a lump in your head?" Yi Xian said, "I'm going to tell Qing that you scolded her." Xiaota was silent for a moment, then said, "Young master, you're really inhuman." "Yi Xian," Xiaota said again, "although master is shameless, there's still a limit. When you're shameless, you're practically like a god. You didn't learn much from master's sword Dao, but not only did you learn the essence of his thick skin, you even surpassed him. Young master, if you continue to be so thick-skinned, I feel that even sister Tian Ming, master, and brother Xiaoyao together won't be able to break your skin. I even suspect that you feel that your sword Dao can't surpass them, so you want to use the unconventional sword Dao to surpass them?" Yi Xian. On this day, early in the morning, the sky was slightly bright, and a red sun slowly rose from the horizon. Suddenly, the Beast Demon Mountain Range trembled, and countless beast demons surged out from the Beast Demon Mountain Range, pouncing towards the Great Wall of Heavenly Mountain like a tide. On top of the Great Wall of Heavenly Mountain, a roar suddenly sounded, "The beast demons are attacking, activate the array." Damn, this kind of behavior is really inhumane. Why don't you finish updating in one go when it's exciting? Is it fun to keep us in suspense? Is it fun to cut off chapters? You finish updating in one go, making us feel good. Can't we vote for you? You purposely keep us in suspense, and even if it's exciting, I won't vote. Although I'm also an author, I really despise such people. For the sake of votes, they do things that are inhumane. They don't care about martial ethics. Chapter 1752. In the starry sky, as the Blood Buddha appeared, the entire starry sky boiled. Xian Er's lips curled up. Starfall. He immediately unleashed his ultimate move. In the depths of the starry sky, countless rays of starlight shot down. A wisp of ferocity flashed through Yuan Yan's eyes. He suddenly raised his head and punched. Behind him, the Buddha statue also punched out at the same time. In an instant, a golden fist engulfed the entire starry sky. In another part of the starry sky, Yi Xian was still cultivating. During this period of time, he had been studying the life and death sword technique and the sword drawing technique. Now, his life and death sword technique and the sword drawing technique could be stacked up to 300 times. 300. If he used the power of his bloodline, he would be able to obtain even more. If he slashed down with his sword now, it would really be able to destroy the world. In fact, not only could he decide life and death with his sword, but he could also decide life and death with a single sword. Just his one sword determining life and death was enough to instantly kill a Heaven Ascension tier. Not only that, his one sword determining life and death could even pose a great threat to a mortal severing tier. Of course, what he wanted to do now was not to kill Heaven Ascension tiers, but to instantly kill mortal severing tiers. It was an instant kill. Right now, it was completely possible for his sword drawing technique to instantly kill a Transcendence Realm elite. Apart from that, he was also studying the words his father had once said, "Space is limitless and eternal, time is endless and eternal." He decided to start his research on space. Space, limitless and eternal? Yi Xian fell into deep thought. A moment later, he said softly, space is boundless and eternal. In other words, space is boundless and will exist forever. At this moment, a surprised voice suddenly came from the side. You actually know that the space is limitless and eternal. Yi Xian turned around and saw a woman standing not far from his right. And Mu. Yi Xian blinked. Miss, you also know that the limitless realm exists forever? Yu Mu looks at Yi Xian. I'm surprised that young Master Yi actually knows about it. Can young Master Yi tell us where you got this information? Yi Xian smiled and said, I figured it out myself. In the prison pagoda, Xiao Ta kept shaking his head. It's over. Little Lord was completely shameless. He Mu smiled and said, young Master Yi must be joking. Yi Xian said seriously, you don't believe me? Yu Mu looks at Yi Xian, young Master Yi, this is impossible for you to comprehend by yourself. That was because this sentence represented a martial arts civilization that far surpassed the modern martial arts civilization. Young Master Yi, this is not just a sentence, but a manifestation of a higher level of martial arts civilization. Yi Xian said, I comprehended it myself. He and Mu were momentarily speechless. He had seen thick-skinned people, but he had never seen someone so thick-skinned. Yi Xian suddenly laughed and said, Miss, are you a demon beast? Yu Mu nodded, I'm from the demon race. Yi Xian glanced at Mu, then smiled and said, Miss, you're so beautiful. I've never seen such a beautiful demon. Xiao Ta, Yu Mu glanced at Yi Xian, thank you young Master Yi for your praise. Young Master Yi's attitude towards the demon race surprised me. Yi Xian laughed, whether it's the demon race or the human race, in my opinion, we are all creatures of this universe. If we can coexist peacefully, that would be great. Yu Mu smiled and said, it's very difficult. Yi Xian nodded, it's indeed very difficult. But, miss, this time it seems like it's your demon beast race causing trouble. Yu Mu smiled slightly, it's not that simple. Yi Xian frowned, what do you mean? Yu Mu looked at Yi Xian, young Master Yi, are you here to help the Yuan realm? Yi Xian said, I'm here to help the Yi race. My father has a good relationship with the Yi race. After a moment of silence, Yu Mu said, young Master Yi, can you give up on meddling in the Yuan realm's matters? Yi Xian smiled and said, I'm afraid not. Yu Mu shook her head, young Master Yi, I know your background isn't simple, but the Yuan realm's matters are far from as simple as you think. Especially this Yi race, they. At this point, she didn't continue speaking. Yi Xian frowned slightly, what are you trying to say? Yu Mu smiled and said, young Master Yi, why don't you go to my demon beast race first, then you can decide if you want to meddle in the Yi race's matters, how about it? Yi Xian thought for a moment and nodded, sure. Yu Mu smiled slightly, young Master Yi, follow me. With that, she turned and left. Yi Xian followed. Yi Xian followed Yu Mu directly to the depths of the Demon Beast mountain range. On the way, Yi Xian turned to look in the direction of the Great Wall of Heaven mountain range and said, you've already started attacking the Great Wall? Yu Mu smiled and said, just for fun. Yi Xian glanced at Yu Mu and didn't say anything. Under Yu Mu's lead, the two of them came to a stone city. Yu Mu brought Yi Xian to a large hall, and at this moment, there were many demon and beast race powerhouses gathered in the hall. When they saw Yu Mu bring a human in, all the demon and beast race powerhouses were stunned. Yi Xian took a look inside the hall, and very quickly, his expression darkened. The beast and demon race powerhouses in the hall were all at least at the mortal severing realm. And in the entire hall, there were a total of 76 mortal severing realm powerhouses from the demon race and beast race. Moreover, These mortal severing realm powerhouses all had mortal bodies. In other words, humans needed 3 mortal severing realm powerhouses to fight against a demon beast with a mortal body. That was a bit of a crushing defeat. It might be even more complicated. Damn it. I've been tricked. Yi Xian suddenly wanted to escape. He Mu suddenly said, "What does the Divine Temple think?" The Demon King said solemnly, "They are determined to get it." Yi Xian said solemnly, "Does the Divine Temple also want this divine level spring of eternal life?" He Mu smiled, "Of course, because even the Divine Temple and the Book Hall don't have a divine level spring of eternal life. And the main reason why they didn't destroy the Yi clan was because the Divine Temple and the Book Hall didn't come to an agreement with us. As long as they came to an agreement, we could destroy the Yuan realm with a flick of our fingers." Yi Xian looked at He Mu, "Even the Yuan clan and the Shao clan?" He Mu nodded, "The Yuan realm has 12 divine level spring of eternal life, be it the Divine Temple or the Book Hall, or the Beast Demon race, they are all tempted." Yi Xian said solemnly, "Isn't Yuan Yen from the Divine Temple?" He Mu smiled, "Young Master Yi, do you think 1 Yuan Yen is worth 4 divine level spring of eternal life? For divine level spring of eternal life is enough to nurture at least 200 mortal severing realm experts, maybe even more." Yi Xian was silent. He Mu said again, "Young Master Yi, it's better not to get involved in this mess." Yi Xian looked at He Mu, "I have a question, why does the Yi clan have a divine level spring of eternal life?" He Mu smiled, "This is what we are curious about, you can ask Yi Yuan." Yi Xian nodded, he got up, "I'm going back to the Yuan realm." With that, he turned into a sword light and disappeared. In the hall, the Demon King said solemnly, "Miss He Mu, what is this person's background?" He Mu chuckled and said, "A person with an extraordinary background. It would be best if we don't become enemies with him." The Demon King nodded slightly, not saying anything else. Yuan realm, in a hall. Yi Yuan looked at Yi Xian in shock, "Young master, don't you know that the Yi clan has a divine level spring of eternal life?" Yi Xian was shocked, "Why do you think I know?" Yi Yuan was also shocked, "Didn't the Swordmaster tell you?" Yi Xian frowned, "Father knows?" Yi Yuan said, "Of course the Swordmaster knows. The reason why the Yi clan can have a divine level spring of eternal life is all because of the Swordmaster, because he was the one who let the little white guy help us improve our sacred level spring of eternal life." Yi Xian, Yi Yuan continued, "At first, I was also worried that having a divine level spring of eternal life would bring about a disaster. However, the Swordmaster said that if the spring of eternal life of my Yi clan broke through, he would send people to help my Yi clan. Weren't you sent by him?" Yi Xian's face was very dark. Yi Yuan hesitated, then said, "Young master, you are very strong, right?" Yi Xian, Yi Yuan said again, "Yi He girl said that you can easily kill those above the mortal realm. You can do it, right?" Yi Xian, at this moment, he really wanted to slap himself. "Who asked you to show off?" Chapter 1753. At this moment, Yi Xian was extremely helpless. He was truly helpless. A divine level spring of eternal life. He knew very well what it meant that countless forces would go crazy for it. How could he defend it? His father had actually asked him to come alone. That was a trap. Was he really his own son? He felt that it was necessary to do a paternity test. Damn it! This was too much of a trap. But now, he wanted to run away. He really wanted to run away. However, if he ran away, what would happen to the Yi clan? He was slightly displeased if he didn't run away. Why should the good karma that was formed by a father be resolved by his son? Unacceptable. At this moment, Yi Yuan smiled bitterly. "Young master, do you not want to care about this?" Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Yi Yuan sighed softly. He hesitated for a moment, then said, I can understand. If young master wants to leave, Yi Xian suddenly shook his head. I will not leave. Yi Yuan looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. The good karma that was formed between you and my father is my good karma. I will acknowledge what he did. Hearing this, Yi Yuan immediately stood up and bowed respectfully. He said excitedly, Thank you, young master. In fact, he also knew what Dao Yi's divine level spring of eternal life meant. An endless amount of trouble. He also wanted to give up. Because he knew that a divine level spring of eternal life was enough to destroy the entire Yi clan. However, because Swordmaster Green had promised him that if the divine level spring of eternal life broke through, he could look for him. Therefore, he sent someone to look for Swordmaster Green. A divine level spring of eternal life could not be guarded by the Yi clan without a powerful backer. In fact, he himself did not expect that his actions would form a good karma with Swordmaster Green and the little white fellow. And this good karma brought too many benefits to the Yi clan. Because the little white fellow did not just give the Yi clan one divine level spring of eternal life. She gave 4 divine level springs of eternal life many benefits. Now, one of them was about to break through, which meant that the other 3 might break through as well. Once the Yi clan had 4 divine level springs of eternal life, meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, Senior Yi Yuan, I'm a little curious about what you gave to Whitey. Yi Yuan hesitated for a moment, then said, This is an ancestral spirit stone passed down by my Yi clan's ancestors. It contains extremely pure eternal qi. Then, he paused and said, I've never seen the purity of the aura of eternal life. Yi Xian asked, You don't know what it is? Yi Yuan shook his head, I don't know. Yi Xian smiled and said, Senior Yi Yuan, that ancestral spirit stone should be extremely precious, but you just gave it away. Yi Yuan laughed. No matter how precious it is, it has no substantial effect on my Yi clan, because my Yi clan has studied it for thousands of years and still hasn't been able to figure it out. Since that's the case, why don't we give it away to forge good karma? Yi Xian smiled. He had to admit that this Yi Yuan was indeed very courageous. Most importantly, Yi Yuan had no ill intentions towards Whitey. At this moment, Yi Yuan said in a low voice, Young master, did you just find out that my Yi clan has a divine level spring of eternal life? Yi Xian nodded. Yi Yuan asked, Where did you find out? Yi Xian said, The Beast Demon Clan. The Beast Demon Clan. Hearing this, Yi Yuan's face immediately sank. I've already temporarily stopped it from breaking through and concealed its aura, but I didn't expect it to still fail. Yi Xian said, That divine level spring of eternal life still hasn't broken through? Yi Yuan nodded. If it breaks through, it will definitely cause a great commotion, so I've been telling it to suppress itself. Yi Xian said, Can you take me to see it? Yi Yuan nodded, Of course. After that, he opened his palm, and a small black pot appeared in his hand. Yi Xian glanced at the black pot. It's inside? Yi Yuan nodded. Yi Xian nodded slightly. Let's go in and take a look. Yi Yuan brought Yi Xian directly into the black pot. Inside the small pot, there was another world. Just entering the small pot, Yi Xian's face suddenly changed. The spiritual energy inside was too dense. At least 10 times denser than outside. Yi Xian turned to look at Yi Yuan. Yi Yuan said in a low voice, If it breaks through, then the quality of its eternal life qi is at least 20 times higher than the divine level spring of eternal life. 20 times. Yi Xian was silent. In other words, a divine level spring of eternal life was equivalent to dozens of heavenly saint level spring of eternal life, or even more. A divine level spring of eternal life, its value was really immeasurable. At this moment, in the lake not far from the two of them, a white dragon suddenly flew out. Boom! The entire lake directly surged. In midair, the white dragon looked down at Yi Xian. Suddenly, it lowered its head and arrived not too far away from Yi Xian's head, and it spoke in a clear voice, "Human, you have Whitey's aura on you." Whitey. Obviously, this white dragon was the divine level spring of eternal life that was about to break through. Yi Xian smiled, "Whitey and I are very, very good friends." A trace of excitement flashed through the white dragon's eyes, "Is that so? I'm Whitey's friend as well." "Since you're its friend, then you're my friend as well." Yi Xian roared with laughter, "What's your name?" The white dragon replied, "Ling Chu. Big brother Swordmaster gave it to me." Your bloodline seems to be similar to Big brother Swordmaster. Yi Yuan smiled, "Ling Chu, this is the young master. He's the Swordmaster's son." The Swordmaster's son. Ling Chu blinked, and then he said, "Big brother Swordmaster sent you to protect me?" Yi Xian nodded and smiled, "Yes." Ling Chu was clearly very happy, and she let out a dragon roar before circling around Yi Xian's head. It didn't take long for her to transform into a ray of white light that descended onto Yi Xian's shoulder. At this moment, she'd transformed into a mini dragon that was only the size of a child's arm. Ling Chu wrapped around Yi Xian's arm and chuckled, "You're Big brother Swordmaster's son, so what should I call you?" Yi Yuan smiled, "Call me young master." However, Ling Chu shook her head, "No, young master doesn't sound nice. Why don't I call you Big brother as well?" Yi Xian roared with laughter, "Sure." Ling Chu chuckled, "Big brother Yi Xian, who's stronger between you and Big brother Swordmaster?" Yi Xian instinctively said, "Of course it's me." At this point, he suddenly stopped. "Damn it. Wait. I'm stronger than my father? I can't act cool like this." Yi Xian smiled sheepishly and said, "Of course it's my father." Xiao Ta instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. Damn it. Young master still has some face. At this moment, Yi Xian said, "I'm just a little bit weaker than my father." Xiao Ta. On Yi Xian's arm, Ling Chu blinked, "Big brother Yi Xian is very powerful." Yi Yuan smiled, "Young master isn't an ordinary person. He can even instantly kill experts above the mortal severing stage." Yi Xian. Ling Chu turned to look at Yi Xian with eyes filled with admiration, "Is that true?" Yi Xian hesitated, "This." Yi Yuan and Ling Chu were both looking at Yi Xian, especially Ling Chu, whose eyes were filled with even more admiration than Yi He. Seeing the look in Ling Chu's eyes, Yi Xian felt dizzy and said, "Of course. What's above the mortal severing stage?" "It's just one strike." Xiao Ta. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Xian suddenly regretted it. "Damn it. I seem to be a little thick-skinned now." At this moment, Yi Yuan suddenly said in a low voice, "Young master, this matter isn't that simple, right?" Yi Xian collected his thoughts and nodded, "It's not simple. Not just the beast demon race, but also the divine temple and book hall." Hearing this, Yi Yuan's face instantly turned pale. Divine temple. Book hall. This was a foreign force on the mountain. He hadn't expected that his divine level spring of eternal life would attract such a force. Yi Xian was just about to speak when Yi Yuan said in a low voice, "Young master, I've decided to hand Ling Chu over to you." Yi Xian was stunned, and then said, "What do you mean?" Yi Yuan shook his head, "Young master, I'd thought that it was just the beast demon race. But now that the divine temple and book hall have joined in as well, it isn't something that my Yi clan can resist at all." Yi Xian smiled, "Even if you hand Ling Chu over to them, they won't let your Yi clan off." Yi Yuan was astounded, "Why?" Yi Xian said, "The saint rank spring of eternal life in the origin world is their target as well. Yi Yuan's face fell when he heard this. Divine level spring of eternal life was precious, but saint rank spring of eternal life was extremely precious as well. Yi Xian smiled, it's not time to despair yet. Yi Yuan shook his head and laughed bitterly, young master, you might not know much about these two powers. Both of them are extraordinary powers, and their strength is unimaginable. I can't drag you down with me. Yi Xian sighed in his heart. Obviously, Elder Yi had slightly underestimated his father. Actually, this was normal. After all, there probably weren't many people in this world that knew exactly how strong his father was. Yi Xian restrained his thoughts and smiled, Elder Yi, if you don't want to drag me down with you, then what do you intend to do after I leave? Yi Yuan hesitated for a moment, and then he said, young master, I have a presumptuous request. Yi Xian asked, tell me about it. Yi Yuan spoke in a low voice, young master, please take some of the youths of my Yi clan with you. Yi Xian said, you intend to stay behind and fight them to the death? Yi Yuan laughed bitterly, it isn't that I want to fight them to the death. If their objective is really the saint rank spring of eternal life, then why not give it to them? But I know that these great powers will definitely pull out the weeds by the roots. Even if we give them everything, they won't let us live. Yi Xian smiled and was about to speak when a voice suddenly resounded from outside, Patriarch, the entire beast demon race has set out. All of them. Yi Yuan's expression instantly changed when he heard this, and he vanished on the spot. But in next to no time, he appeared in front of Yi Xian once more. Moreover, Yi He and a young man were by his side. Yi Yuan gazed at the young man and Yi He, Yi Lin, kneel before the young master. Both of them were stunned. Yi Yuan suddenly roared furiously, kneel. Both of them hesitated for a moment before they slowly knelt down, but they were stopped by Yi Xian. Meanwhile, Yi Yuan suddenly knelt before Yi Xian, young master, I know that the temple and book hall are very terrifying, and I really shouldn't have allowed all of you to be swept into this vortex. But I have no other choice. I beg you to save the lives of these two siblings. My Yi clan will repay the young master and Swordmaster's great kindness in the next life. Chapter 1754. Yi Yuan had fallen into despair when he found out that the temple and hall of books were involved. He had truly fallen into despair. These two forces were definitely not something they could go against. Not to mention them, even if the three great clans joined forces, they wouldn't be able to go against one of them. Annihilation. He knew that his Yi clan might be annihilated. Yi He and Yi Lin were stunned when they heard Yi Yuan's words. What's going on? Both of them were in a daze. Yi Xian helped Yi Yuan up and smiled, Father promised to protect your Yi clan, so your Yi clan will be fine. Actually, after spending time with Yi Yuan, he realized that Yi Yuan was really a good person. He was a good person indeed. Moreover, he realized that the people that his father befriended were all good people. For example, Shan Qiu, swordsman from the Sword Alliance, and Yi Yuan. Yi Yuan smiled bitterly, young master, the temple and hall of books, Yi Xian said, I'll do it. Yi Yuan was stunned when he heard that. Yi Xian smiled, I'll do it. Yi Yuan said solemnly, young master, I don't mean to look down on you and the Swordmaster, but do you know how terrifying the temple and hall of books are? Yi Xian smiled, do you have any other way besides trusting me? Yi Yuan fell silent. He really didn't have any other way. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent someone to look for the green-shirt Swordmaster. Meanwhile, Ling Chu suddenly said, Big brother Yi Xian, can I break through now? Yi Xian looked at Ling Chu, and Ling Chu giggled, I can't hold it in any longer. Yi Xian smiled, if you want to break through, then break through. Hearing this, Ling Chu was extremely excited. Really? Yi Xian nodded, really? Ling Chu giggled, and then she transformed into a ray of white light that appeared on the surface of a nearby lake. In the next moment, a powerful aura suddenly swept out from her body. Bang! In an instant, the entire lake started to boil. He had to enter godly trance. As the spirit stopped suppressing it, a powerful wave of spiritual energy suddenly spread throughout the small pot. In the end, the small pot could no longer suppress the spiritual energy, so the spiritual energy spread outside. Outside the Great Wall of Sky Mountain, all the demon beasts turned to look in the direction of Yi Xian and the others. Above the Great Wall, the experts of the Shao clan and the Yuan clan also turned to look in the direction of Yi Xian and the others, their eyes filled with shock. Boom! Right at this moment, a white dragon suddenly soared into the sky, soaring across the horizon. And with the appearance of this white dragon, the spiritual energy of the entire primordial realm actually increased at an alarming rate. God, Yuan Xiao stopped and looked at the white dragon in the distance, his eyes filled with disbelief. This, not only Yuan Xiao, all the people and beasts were shocked. Behind the group of beasts, He Mu looked at the white dragon and said softly, "Is it about to break through?" At this moment, both the primordial realm and the beast demon race stopped. All eyes were on the white dragon. This white dragon was going to enter the immortal realm. Once it entered the immortal realm, the white dragon would undergo earth-shattering changes. God-level spring of eternal life. This level of the spring of eternal life was extremely rare in this vast universe. One had to know that even the temple and the hall of books did not have this level of spring of eternal life. At this moment, Yi Xian, Yi Yuan, and the others appeared below the white dragon. Yi Yuan's expression was extremely solemn. He knew that after today, the Yi clan would either be destroyed or completely rise. If they could defend, they would rise. If they could not, the Yi clan would completely disappear from the world. At this moment, He Mu suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. She looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "It seems like young Master Yi has still decided to interfere with the Yi clan's affairs." Yi Xian smiled and said, "It's not me who decided to interfere with the Yi clan's affairs. It's my father who decided to interfere." He Mu blinked and said, "Is there any difference between your father interfering and you interfering?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "Miss, the difference is too big." He Mu smiled and said, "Young Master Yi, do you want to single-handedly fight against my beast demon clan, the hall of books and the temple?" Yi Xian shook his head, "I can't." He Mu looked at Yi Xian, "Your father can?" Yi Xian sighed softly, "Miss He Mu, I think you are a good person. Previously you gave me a suggestion and a choice. Now, I will also give you a suggestion and a choice. Do you want to listen?" He Mu smiled and said, "Of course I'm willing to listen." Yi Xian smiled and said, "The Yi clan is under my Yang family's protection. Don't have any ideas about them. Yang family is under his protection." When he said this, everyone was shocked. This sentence was very domineering. But, who the hell was the Yang family? They had never heard of it. He Mu looked at Yi Xian and said, "I have never heard of the Yang family." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Just because you have never heard of it doesn't mean there is none." He Mu smiled and said, "I know that Dao Yi is in a higher circle, but I have never heard of the Yang family. Is the Yang family too strong, beyond the circle that I know, or is the Yang family too weak?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "Looks like Miss He Mu is not going to give up." He Mu shook his head and said, "Young Master Yi, I really don't understand why you are helping the Yi family. Is there any benefit for you?" Yi Xian shook his head and said, "There is no benefit." He Mu frowned and said, "Then why are you?" Yi Xian laughed and said, "I told you. The Yi family is my Yang family's friend." He Mu looked at Yi Xian and said, "But your surname is Yi." Are you an illegitimate child? Yi Xian was speechless. Now that he thought about it, he hadn't changed his surname yet. But he did not intend to change it. Yi Xian was used to it. In any case, his father didn't care, so why should he? Moreover, no matter what his surname was, wasn't he still his father's son? Or perhaps he should ask his father to change his surname to Yi. Yi Yang? Yi Xian couldn't help but laugh when he thought up to here. Meanwhile, Yuan Qiu suddenly walked over to Yi Xian and Yi Yuan. Yuan Qiu gazed at Yi Yuan and smiled bitterly. Brother Yi Yuan, you've made everyone suffer. Yi Yuan smiled and said, I dare not be dissatisfied. Yuan Qiu spoke in a low voice, Brother Yi Yuan, this will bring calamity to your Yi family. Yi Yuan nodded, and then he gazed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian was about to speak when an old man suddenly appeared out of thin air. As soon as the old man appeared, the expressions of everyone here changed drastically. An expert that was above the paragon mundane realm. The old man glanced at the white dragon, and then he turned to look at He Mu and nodded slightly, Miss He Mu. He Mu laughed and said, so it's Hall Master Lin Hai. The Hall Master of the Book Hall. The expressions of everyone here changed when they heard this. The legendary Hall Master of the Book Hall has actually come. The Hall Master of the Book Hall is the strongest, and beneath him are the Hall Masters of the 4 halls. Lin Hai was the Hall Master of the Painting Hall. Lin Hai sized He Mu up, and then he smiled, as expected of the most monstrous genius in the history of Sin City. He Mu shook his head and smiled, you flatter me. Lin Hai smiled, Miss He Mu, are you here on behalf of Sin City or the Beast Demon race? He Mu smiled, what do you think, Hall Master Lin? Lin Hai fell silent. He Mu continued, Hall Master Lin, it's actually too early for us to be discussing all of this. Regardless of whether it's the divine rank spring of eternal life or the 12 saint rank springs of eternal life, they don't belong to us yet. The expressions of Yuan Qiu, Xiao Lin, and the others changed when they heard He Mu. Their objective wasn't just the divine rank spring of eternal life, it was their saint rank spring of eternal life as well. Lin Hai glanced at Yi Xian, Miss He Mu, you mean he's a variable? He Mu smiled, yes. So, it's too early for us to be discussing the ownership of the spring of eternal life. Lin Hai gazed at Yi Xian, so, we have to kill him first, right? He Mu nodded, yes. Lin Hai was about to speak when a Buddhist chant resounded abruptly, Amitabha. The expressions of everyone here became solemn once more when they heard this. The divine temple is here. As soon as he finished speaking, a monk appeared not too far away from Yi Xian. The monk had 6 scars on his head, wore a black kasaya, and had a large mole between his brows. The divine temple. Miku. Lin Hai gazed at the monk and smiled, Miku, I never expected that the Grand Elder of the Divine Temple would actually come here personally. Miku pressed his palms together, how could I underestimate the divine rank spring of eternal life? Lin Hai roared with laughter, and then he glanced at Yi Xian, Miss He Mu, whether or not we're able to obtain the spring of eternal life depends on this person. Miku gazed at Yi Xian, benefactor, are you overestimating your ability? Yi Xian was about to speak when He Mu spoke abruptly, I wonder if the two of you have heard of the Yang clan? The Yang clan? Lin Hai frowned slightly, never. Miku shook his head, never. He Mu gazed at Yi Xian and smiled, young Master Yi, it looks like I'm not ignorant. Yi Xian was about to speak when Miku spoke abruptly, since this benefactor dares to stop us, then he definitely has the ability to. As he spoke, he gazed at Yi Xian, benefactor, if you have someone backing you, then you can call out now. Otherwise, I'm going to send you off from the afterlife. Yi Xian smiled, does the divine temple act in such an overbearing manner? Miku gazed at Yi Xian, benefactor, since you won't call out, then allow me to send you off from the afterlife. As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked his sleeve. Boom! A powerful aura swept out, blasting straight at Yi Xian. At this moment, a trace of malevolence flashed in Yi Xian's eyes as he drew his sword and slashed. Boom! That aura directly shattered. Seeing this scene, Miku narrowed his eyes, swordsman. At the side, Lin Hai suddenly laughed. This person has reached this level at such a young age, the person behind him must not be weak. Miku, I'm afraid it'll be a bit difficult for you to send him off from the afterlife. Miku glanced at Yi Xian. He's indeed not simple, but so what? Those who go against my divine temple, die. As he spoke, he was about to make his move. Yi Xian opened his palm and the Swordmaster token appeared in his hand. Great monk, do you recognize this item? Miku glanced at the Swordmaster token and shook his head. I don't recognize it. Don't recognize it. Yi Xian was stunned. Yi Xian waved the Swordmaster token in his hand. Are you sure you don't recognize it? Miku looked at Yi Xian and opened his palm. Yi Xian loosened his hand and the Swordmaster token fell into Miku's hand. After sizing it up, Miku shook his head. I don't recognize it. As he spoke, he slightly exerted force in his right hand and the Swordmaster token directly shattered. Destroyed. Miku looked at Yi Xian. Although my divine temple doesn't dare to say that it's invincible, but in this world, it's not afraid of anyone. Come, hurry up and call for help. At the side, Lin Hai also laughed. Hurry up and call for help. The old man is already a bit impatient. I hope your father is strong enough, otherwise, the old man will be too disappointed. Yumu also smiled. Young Master Yi, I also want to meet young Master Ye's father, go ahead and call for help. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from not far behind Yi Xian, brother. Hearing this, Yi Xian's body instantly trembled. Yi Xian slowly turned around. Not far in front of him, a woman wearing a plain dress slowly walked over. Inside the prison pagoda, Xiao Ta fell to the ground. It's over. P.S. I really want to be mischievous, but I'm afraid you'll scold me. I'd better keep a low profile. Chapter 1755. Qing. Yi Xian was stunned. Why was she here? This was really too sudden. The plainly dressed woman walked in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Qing, why are you here? Qing Er's right hand slowly stroked Yi Xian's cheek, and she said softly, I missed you. I missed you. Yi Xian's heart warmed slightly. He grabbed Qing Er's hand. I actually missed you very much too. But, I couldn't find you. The plainly dressed woman grabbed Yi Xian's hand. She looked Yi Xian up and down, and smiled slightly. You've improved very quickly. Yi Xian hurriedly said, I can easily kill mortal severing realm experts now. The plainly dressed woman blinked. Mortal severing realm? Yi Xian asked, do you know what realm it is? The plainly dressed woman nodded, I do. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, do you think mortal severing realm experts are strong? The plainly dressed woman didn't speak. Yi Xian, at this time, Miku suddenly looked at the plainly dressed woman, and there was a trace of wariness in his eyes. Who are you? As a top expert, he could naturally sense that the plainly dressed woman was extraordinary. No, he couldn't sense the plainly dressed woman. But it was also because of this that he was serious. The plainly dressed woman didn't even look at Miku. She tightly held onto Yi Xian's hand, and said softly, brother, at the side, Miku suddenly said fiercely, you dare ignore this old monk, you. The plainly dressed woman suddenly raised her sword. Chi! Before Miku could react, his head was directly pierced by a sword. Everyone present was stunned. And Lin Hai and Mu's expressions instantly became unprecedentedly serious. The plainly dressed woman looked at Miku. her gaze as calm as water, weak as an ant. What right do you have for me to ignore you? Not even the right to ignore her. Miku glared at the plainly dressed woman. Who are you? The plain-dressed woman pointed at Yi Xian. I'm his sister. Do you have a problem with that? Miku, meanwhile, Yumu spoke in a low voice. You're the one who created the life and death sword technique. The plainly dressed woman looked at Yumu. What's wrong? Himu looked at the plain-dressed woman and said, would like to exchange a few moves with Senior. The woman in the plain dress looked at Yumu. What kind of trash are you? Are you even worthy of asking me for advice? Yumu stared at the plain-dressed woman. Please enlighten me. As she spoke, a powerful aura suddenly swept out from her body. Beyond the mundane realm. Everyone present was slightly shocked. Mu was so young, yet he'd actually reached a level above Paragon Shen. Isn't this too terrifying? At this moment, the plainly dressed lady suddenly took a step forward. With that step, a sword glow suddenly flew out. Before anyone could react, the spot between Mu's brows was directly pierced by the sword glow. Everyone was petrified. Including Na and Mu. She was petrified on the spot. I can't even take a single move. A wisp of disdain arose on the corners of the woman's mouth as she gazed at Mu. Monster? Genius? There are no monsters or geniuses before me. Even if there are, they're trash. Yi Xian, the woman turned to look at Yi Xian. That doesn't include you, big brother. Yi Xian was slightly embarrassed. Mu stared fixedly at the woman. Why have I never heard of you? The woman in the plain dress glanced at Himu. You're weak. Mu stared at her. Don't tell me you don't know that there's always someone better out there. The woman slowly walked over to Mu and looked him in the eye. There's always someone better out there. There's no one besides me. There's always someone better out there. As she spoke, a wisp of disdain arose on the corners of her mouth. Even if all the heavens in the world were added together, would they be able to block a single strike of my sword? Mu stared at her. In the boundless universe, who dares to say they're invincible? You're invincible now, but it doesn't mean you'll be invincible in the future. The woman patted Mu lightly on the shoulder. Call for reinforcements. Call for reinforcements. Everyone was speechless. The woman gazed at Mu. Call for reinforcements. Meanwhile, the space behind Mu suddenly trembled. In the next moment, an extremely formidable aura swept out from the surroundings. Everyone looked over and saw a middle-aged man standing not too far behind Mu. The middle-aged man wore a loose robe made of beast skin. His upper body was bare, and there was a black divine dragon tattooed on his chest. The expressions of the demon kings and beast kings changed when they saw the middle-aged man, and then they hurriedly bowed respectfully. Greetings, beast demon god. Beast demon god. Everyone here was shocked when they heard the demon kings and beast kings. The person before them was the one who'd unified the demon race and beast race. After they confirmed his identity, countless demon beasts roared furiously in unison. Beast demon god. For a time, their voices rumbled like thunder and shook the sky. The woman's beautiful brows knit together slightly. Noisy. As soon as she finished speaking, she flicked her sleeve. Hiss. A strand of sword light swept down from the sky. In an instant, the voices of the demon beasts stopped abruptly. The heads of hundreds of thousands of demon beasts fell to the ground. Blood instantly dyed the ground red. Everyone felt as if they'd been struck by lightning when they saw this scene. After all, there were almost 100 mortal severing realm powerhouses amongst the demon beasts below. However, even those mortal severing realm powerhouses hadn't been able to block this strike. Instantly killing hundreds of thousands of demon beasts with a single strike. At this moment, Yi Xian was slightly stunned. He wasn't surprised by Qing Er's strength. He was surprised by Qing Er's killing intent. Qing had killed hundreds of thousands of demon beasts without batting an eyelid. He hadn't even blinked once. The beast demon god looked at the woman, and for the first time, there was a trace of fear in his eyes. As for Namu, who was standing in front of the plain-dressed woman, his mind was completely blank. Annihilating hundreds of thousands of demon beasts with a single strike? They were annihilated just like that? Miku, who hadn't died yet, was stunned as well. Instantly killing hundreds of thousands of demon beasts with a single strike. What kind of divine figure was this? Meanwhile, the beast demon god suddenly spoke in a low voice, "Your Excellency, Miss Mu and I are from Sin City. Please." The woman suddenly looked at the beast demon god. In the next moment, the beast demon god's expression changed drastically, and then he suddenly smashed his fist forward. At the instant his fist blasted forward, a deafening explosion resounded. The heavens and the earth trembled in fear. This punch was truly capable of destroying the heavens and the earth. Everyone's expressions changed drastically. However, as a ray of light flashed, the punch instantly vanished without a trace. When everyone recovered from their shock, the beast demon god's head had fallen slowly to the ground. Another instant kill. Everyone in the surroundings was dumbstruck when they witnessed this scene. The Demon King and Beast King had even slumped to the ground. They knew the beast demon god's strength. Both of them were at the peak of the mortal severing realm, but their joint forces couldn't even withstand a single punch from the beast demon god. Yet at this moment, the beast demon god couldn't even withstand a single strike from this woman. How terrifying was this woman? It wasn't just the Demon King and Beast King, the fear in Mu's eyes had transformed into terror as well. She was aware of the beast demon god's strength, but she hadn't expected that the beast demon god would be instantly killed. He was instantly killed. Exactly how terrifying is this woman? Meanwhile, the woman looked at Mu. "Where's Sin City?" Mu hesitated for a moment and said, "What do you intend to do?" The woman's expression was calm. "Slaughter the entire city. Slaughter the entire city." Mu was horrified when she spoke these words. She was just about to speak when Yi Yuan suddenly said, "Senior, I know where it is." The woman said, "Point me in a direction." Yi Yuan pointed to the right. "Sin City is after a few tens of thousands of stellar regions." The woman suddenly opened her palm, and then the walk sword in her hand transformed into a ray of light that shot forward. "No." Mu's eyes almost split apart from rage. "No." The woman gazed at Mu. "I'll annihilate the entire clan of anyone who dares to touch my brother." Yi Xian. Mu hurriedly looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, it's my fault." The woman suddenly said, "If apologies were useful, why would we still cultivate the sword?" As she spoke, she turned to look at Yi Xian. "Brother, don't you think so?" Yi Xian didn't speak. The woman looked at Yi Xian. "If brother doesn't want to annihilate her entire clan, then I won't." Yi Xian smiled. "No matter what you do, I'll support you." The woman's lips curled up slightly, and her smile was so bright that it made the heavens and earth lose their color. On the other hand, Yu Mu's face instantly turned pale. The woman suddenly looked at Lin Hai, and Lin Hai stared at her. "I don't think you're really invincible." As soon as he spoke, he opened his palm, and a painting suddenly flew out. In the next moment, the painting arrived above the woman's head, and then a white light poured down and enveloped the woman. However, the woman was completely unharmed. Lin Hai's eyes were filled with disbelief. "You? How could this be possible?" The woman raised her hand and swung her sword. Hiss! A ray of light pierced through Lin Hai's forehead, and he froze on the spot. Another instant kill. Everyone here looked at the woman as if they were looking at a monster. Lin Hai stared at her. Who the hell are you? Who the hell are you? The woman walked over to Lin Hai. Call for help. Lin Hai glared angrily at her. I don't believe you're really invincible. As soon as he spoke, he opened his palm, and a talisman suddenly shot into the sky. Call for help. How could there be an invincible person in this world? Absolutely not. Meanwhile, the woman suddenly turned to look at Mu. You don't have to call for help. As she spoke, she looked up into the distance. We're here. We're here. In the distant Sin starfield, Sin City. On this day, a sword suddenly appeared in the sky above the originally peaceful city of Tian Sin. The walking sword. As soon as the sword appeared, a powerful sword aura enveloped the entire Sin City. At this moment, a furious shout suddenly resounded from the depths of Sin City. Who dares to offend my Sin City? As soon as the voice resounded, the walking sword suddenly descended. Bang! In an instant, the voice and the entire Sin City were reduced to nothingness. Slaughtering a city with a single strike. Slaughtering a city just like that. Chapter 1756. Heavenly Sin City was an extremely ancient and mysterious force, and there were at least 10 experts who had surpassed Zhu Chen. And there were at least several hundred Transcendence Realm elites. At this moment, all the experts were turned into nothingness in an instant. Many people did not even know how they died. At this moment, a sword suddenly flew up from the ruins, and then it vanished into the starry sky. At this time, a mysterious aura suddenly appeared around the city of Sin. These mysterious experts in the dark were all extremely shocked. Who was the one who destroyed Sky Sin City? Who was it? Outside the great wall of Heavenly Mountain, the woman in the plain dress opened her palm and the walking Dao sword landed steadily in her hand. Seeing the walking sword, Mu looked at the plain-dressed woman in terror. You, the plainly dressed woman glanced at Mu. Your house is gone. Yi Xian was speechless. He and Mu stared at the woman in the plain dress, their gazes seemed to be able to kill. The woman in the plain dress ignored her and turned to look at Lin Hai. Have your people arrived? Lin Hai snarled, Woman, do you really think you're invincible? The plainly dressed woman looked at the sea of trees. I also hope that I'm not invincible. Unfortunately, I'm invincible. Lin Hai roared angrily, don't you dare act tough. Invincible? Right at this moment, a voice suddenly resounded from the depths of the starry sky. The woman in the plain dress looked up and saw an old man walking over from the starry sky. The master of the Hall of Books, Li Mushu. This was the head of the 4 hall masters of the book hall. In the entire book hall, he was second only to the court head. Li Mushu took a step forward, and when his foot landed, he was already in front of the plain-dressed woman. Li Mushu looked at the plain-dressed woman. Are you talking about invincibility? The plain-dressed woman looked at Li Mushu. Do you have a problem? Li Mushu smiled and said, I just find it ridiculous. The walking Dao sword in the woman's hand suddenly flew out. Chi! Before Li Mushu could react, the sword pierced through his forehead. Li Mushu's smile froze. The plain-dressed woman looked at Li Mushu. Any other questions? Li Mushu looked at the plain-dressed woman in horror. You. Who are you? The plainly dressed woman looked at the sea of trees. Continue calling for more people. Continue calling for reinforcements. Lin Hai's expression was extremely ugly. The woman said, if you don't, then all of you can die. As she said that, she opened her palm and the walking Dao sword suddenly appeared in her palm. Lin Hai's expression changed drastically when he saw this, and he hurriedly said, I'll shout. I'm calling. The woman in a plain dress nodded slightly, then let's call it that. Remember to call more people over. It's best if you can summon your ancestors. Summoning the ancestor. Lin Hai's expression was extremely ugly. He had no choice but to call out. He knew that the reason why the woman in front of him didn't kill him was because she wanted him to call for help. Right at this moment, an old man in a white robe suddenly appeared not far away from the woman in a plain dress. Court head. The person who had come was the court master of the Hall of Writings. He was also the strongest expert in the book hall. After the white-robed old man appeared, he immediately bowed slightly to the woman in the plain dress. "Greetings, Senior." The plain-dressed woman looked at the white-robed old man. "How do you want to die?" The white-robed old man's expression froze. He smiled bitterly and said, "Senior, it was my book hall's fault this time. My book hall is willing to apologize." The plainly dressed woman shook her head, "No need." As she spoke, she opened her palm, and a sword appeared in her grasp. The white-robed old man hurriedly said, "Senior, are you willing to make a bet?" The woman gazed at the white-robed old man. "A bet?" The white-robed old man spoke in a low voice, "Senior, spare my book hall if I resist a single strike of your sword." "Resist a single strike." The white-robed old man felt extremely bitter in his heart when he spoke these words. When had he ever been so humble? Yet at this moment, he had no choice but to be humble. This woman before him really possessed the ability to destroy the book hall. The woman gazed at the white-robed old man. "All right." The white-robed old man nodded slightly. He opened his palm, and a thick ancient book suddenly appeared in his hand. "The Book of Holy Wisdom." Someone exclaimed with shock. The Book of Holy Wisdom. It was a precious treasure of the book hall. The white-robed old man gazed at the woman. "Senior, can I make the first move?" The woman nodded, "All right." The white-robed old man stared at her. "Senior, please provide me with your guidance." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly opened the Book of Holy Wisdom. In the next moment, countless golden characters flew out from within the Book of Holy Wisdom, and then countless mysterious and ancient voices instantly resounded throughout the heavens and the earth. The Book of Holy Wisdom. These were the words of an ancient saint. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings, and he frowned slightly. This Book of Holy Wisdom is really mysterious. At this moment, he sensed the aura of death. The woman had a calm expression on her face, and she wasn't impatient to attack. In her opinion, it didn't matter if she attacked early or late, because she would only attack once. Meanwhile, the white-robed old man suddenly gazed at Yi Xian. The Book of Holy Wisdom determines life and death. Bang! In an instant, countless ancient characters suddenly converged into an enormous golden character, Death. In the next moment, the enormous golden character for Death shot directly towards the woman in a plain dress, and the ancient golden character contained countless ancient voices. As these ancient divine voices resounded, the expressions of everyone in the surroundings changed drastically. The words of the Book of Holy Wisdom were like sharp swords that struck at the heart. The words of the Book of Holy Wisdom determined life and death. The white-robed old man utilized his full strength as soon as he attacked. Because he knew that he only had a single chance to attack. Some cultivators with weak willpower and Tao hearts perished on the spot, and it was even to the extent that some mortal severing realm experts were amongst them. On the other hand, Yi Xian's expression changed drastically. His heart of the sword Tao had actually wavered slightly when he heard the words of those saints. It was self-denial. The words of these saints would throw the hearts of others into disorder. Yi Xian hurriedly circulated the profound energy within his body and started to suppress the words of those saints. The woman shook her head while a trace of disappointment flashed through her eyes. How gaudy. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly slashed with her sword. Hiss. Along with the sound of something tearing resounding, the entire heavens and the earth suddenly fell silent. At the same time, the words of the saints that had arrived before the woman had suddenly transformed into nothingness. Everyone in the surroundings gazed at the white-robed old man. At this moment, a ray of light had pierced through the space between the old man's brows. Another instant kill. At this moment, the entire heavens and the earth were silent to the point a falling needle could be heard. The white-robed old man gazed at the woman from afar while a trace of bewilderment could be seen in his eyes. Exactly, how strong are you? Exactly how strong? Everyone in the surroundings gazed at the woman. Just how strong was this plainly dressed woman? It wasn't just the white-robed old man who wanted to know, everyone else here wanted to know exactly how strong she was. Meanwhile, the woman suddenly opened her palm, and then the Book of Saints in the white-robed old man's hand suddenly flew into her grasp. She glanced at it and shook her head. Such words are even worthy of being called a saint? Trash. As she spoke, she intended to destroy the Book of Saints. Meanwhile, Yi Xian hurriedly said, "Qing, The woman turned around to gaze at Yi Xian. "You want it?" Yi Xian nodded. The woman thought for a moment and shook her head. "It's all trash. Wait for me to find something better for you." As she spoke, she exerted a little force with her right hand, and then the Book of Saints transformed into ash. Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, the white-robed old man spoke in a low voice, "Senior, those are the words of the ancient saints, yet you actually said that they're trash?" The woman glanced at the white-robed old man while a wisp of disdain arose on the corners of her mouth. "The saints? A group of ignorant fellows actually dared to assume the title of saint or god? How laughable." As she spoke, she flicked her sleeve lightly. "Since you've inherited these so-called inheritances of the saints, then you should be able to summon your ancestors. Come, summon them." The white-robed old man stared fixedly at the woman. "As you wish." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly opened his palm, and then a command token shot into the sky. Bang! An expanse of white light suddenly descended from the depths of the starry sky, and then the entire world instantly seethed with excitement. The world was shocked by the appearance of a saint. The ancestor of the Book Hall was once a saint. Moreover, he was a great saint. The woman raised her head to look up into the sky, and a white-haired old man had silently appeared amidst the white light. The white-haired old man's clothes were snow-white, and he emanated a dense aura of refinement. As soon as the white-haired old man appeared, he looked directly at the woman in the plain dress, and his gaze instantly became solemn. She opened her palm, and then the sword in her hand suddenly flew forward. In midair, the white-haired old man's pupils constricted, and then he pressed his fingers together and pointed forward, "World Stabilizer." His finger directly struck the ray of light from the woman. Bang! Everyone watched as the ray of light suddenly pierced through the tip of the white-haired old man's finger, and then it entered his body. Bang! The white-haired old man was instantly annihilated. Another instant annihilation. The white-robed old man's countenance turned pale as a sheet when he witnessed this scene, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. My ancestor, the great saint, was instantly annihilated just like that? The woman suddenly shook her head. How boring. As she spoke, she waved her right hand lightly, and then the Dean and the ocean of trees were instantly annihilated. She turned around to look at Miku, call for help. Miku's expression was extremely unsightly. Meanwhile, a voice suddenly resounded, "Buddha be praised." Along with this voice resounding, an old monk suddenly appeared before the woman. The abbot of the divine temple. Miku was astounded. "Abbot, you've emerged from your closed-door cultivation?" The old monk paid no attention to Miku, and he bowed slightly to the woman instead. "Miss, can this matter be resolved peacefully?" The woman shook her head. "No." The old monk fell silent for a short moment before he sighed. "Miss, my divine temple is absolutely not a match for you, but I know that there's definitely someone in this world who can go against you." The woman gazed at the old monk. "Call for him." The old monk nodded slightly, and then he opened his palm to reveal a sword token. Both Yi Xian and Mi Ku were stunned when they saw this sword token. Yi Xian's expression became strange because this sword token was practically identical to the sword token he possessed. The Swordmaster's token? Mi Ku glanced at Yi Xian. Why does my abbot possess a sword token that's exactly the same as this fellow? Meanwhile, the old monk opened his palm, and then the sword token suddenly transformed into a ray of light that shot into the sky. Oam! A sword howl suddenly shook the heavens and the earth. A short moment later, the space and the sky suddenly split apart, and then a man in green clothes suddenly walked out from within it. The old monk was instantly extremely excited when he saw the man's true body, and he bowed deeply. The divine temple welcomes the Swordmaster. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. Tickets are here. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.